Once upon a time, there was a podcast whose work was about the critique and discussion surrounding English dubs for Japanese animation. This podcast's language and subject matter was not always suitable for younger audiences and required discretion for all who listened. This podcast would often spoil the stories being discussed, heeding a warning for any who have not yet experienced the full story themselves. Of course, the words that came from the individuals were of their own opinions and didn't necessarily reflect the views of the podcast as a whole. Which raises the question, what is a podcast, but not a collection of many voices all coming together as one? Perhaps we shall find the answer in this story about a little duck who wishes to become a real girl.
Greetings, all you children who love stories. Come gather round for the Darren Aronofsky podcast. Yes, after talking about Noah last week and the morality of letting all human beings die, we've decided to go with a lighter direction here. And we're going to talk about Black Swan. Yes, the Academy Award... I'm so sorry about that. Had a different podcast stuck in my throat there. Anyways, hello guys, and welcome to the Dub Talk Podcast, your premier podcast. We're talking about all things dubbed from Japanese into English and all the little goodies that come in between there. I wanted to congratulate all of you for clicking on this episode because you saw the title, you saw the imagery, and you decided, I am man enough, or woman enough, or non-binary enough, to watch a show that happens to be given the name Princess Tutu. Because if a show's got that title, there's going to be some expectations to it. Well, fret not, dear listeners, because I have assembled the four manliest men that I know, and I am not exaggerating. These gentlemen here are the ones who I would go into battle with, sword held high, to battle against the Horde, because that is just how manly they are. So, how are we all doing tonight, gentlemen?
Stand up straight, stand up stiff. You must do all of your techniques. You must do the basics. Otherwise, you will marry me.
Man, I'm upset. I was going to do that first.
Only one of us needs to... We only need one, Mr. Cat. So we've got that out of the way. So, yeah, we've got a good group here. Let's go ahead and introduce the fine gentlemen we've got on the call here. So, on top of myself, NoahClue, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Cat himself, Andrew.
Hey guys, how you doing tonight?
We've got the prima ballerina, or ballerino, I'm not sure what the male version is, himself, Jet.
Hello.
And we've got the author himself, whose hands we will hopefully keep intact throughout the duration of this episode, Jamal!
She's just a duck, and she's only a duck.
Yes, she is, and we're going to talk a lot about the duck here. So I think we should probably answer the major questions on everyone's lips. Why Princess Tutu, guys?
Why indeed? Why indeed?
For those who are in the know, us here at Dub Talk have our own Patreon, patreon.com/dubtalkpodcast. And as part of those who submit to the podcast, they are entered into a bi-monthly raffle where the winner of that raffle gets to pick our next episode.
So basically what it is now is that everybody who's a $10 tier gets to submit a nominated title, and then after a week is done, all of our patrons get to vote on said title. After a couple of days, the one with the most votes gets to be the episode for this quarter's patron episode.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, our winner for this round of raffles is the incredibly talented Marissa Lenti. So thank you very much, Marissa. And Marissa, after picking a couple of titles that I've actually been involved with, decided to go back in time. Yeah, we're not just talking about your favorite shows from like 10 years ago. No, we're going back like 20 years ago to the HAL Film Studio release from ADV Films, Princess Tutu.
Sometimes it's good to go back and look at some of the classics. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Which one are you referring to?
Yes. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
So, Okay, this is going to be an interesting episode because, unlike myself, all three of these men here have never actually seen the show before this recording. Is that correct?
So that is not 100% true. I have some experience with this show because back when I first moved into this apartment, I remember we didn't really have internet set up because the cables were fucked up. So we just pulled up some Blu-rays that Steph had, and while we were just chilling time in our new bedroom, pulled up something that I had never seen before that Steph wanted to watch with me, and that was Princess Tutu. For some reason or another, I got as far 3 years ago as finishing what was effectively season 1 of Princess Tutu 3 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And that was when I first moved into that apartment. And it feels very fitting that I'm about to move out of this apartment in several weeks now. So I'm finally finishing this show in my apartment right as I'm about to head out, after starting it when I moved in with Steph like 3 years ago.
Yeah, time is just a flat circle. It all just comes back around again.
But outside of that, this is still what I would consider like relatively fresh experience, especially the second half of this. That was all fresh and new.
Oh, we'll get to all of the Tutu here. Jet, what about yourself? Is this first time viewing for you?
Oh, yeah.
And did you have prior knowledge of this show? Like, have you at least heard of the title before signing up for this episode?
Yeah. I've heard whispers of this show for basically forever. And I know a rowdy time a certain other dark magical girl show came out and a lot of people immediately compared it to this. So that was
Dark Girl. Whatever do you mean? What other dark magical girl show was coming out in 2010 that you were talking about?
Fun fact, it was the one that was our first Patron's Choice episode.
Was it?
Yes, it was.
I completely forgot
Yes,
about
it was.
Huh.
I don't mean to be nitpicky, but it was 2011 technically. I would know because that was also the year Tiger and Bunny and Penguin Drum came out. That was a good year.
Thank you.
It was a great
You'll
year
forgive
for
me for
anime.
getting I get my college years mixed up a little bit. I apologize for that. Jamal, what about yourself, man? Got any thing going into the show before actually sitting down to watch it?
I didn't have any experience prior to this. As a matter of fact, I was really familiar with Princess Tutu by word of mouth, mostly between you and Hardy. As a matter of fact, when I met you in person, I think at A-Fest 2018, you gave me a copy of Princess Tutu on DVD.
I did. I specifically picked that out because I like giving my friends home video releases. I believe I bought it for the holidays, and I just gave it to you then because I didn't get a chance to mail it out ahead of time. But I bought that one specifically for you because it has a lot of special features on the home video release that aren't available on the streaming version. And I thought that would be well worth the cost because it's not just giving you the show again; it's giving you a ton of bonus features that go.
Yeah,
with it.
I'm kind of going through all of this. I'm sort of used to how many physical releases come out now that are you buy because you're an obsessive collector and you realize the streaming market is fucked and things could disappear at any given moment if somebody flips a switch to save $12. So you're just kind of used to just having the show on a disc. So going through the home video release for me is realizing how many commentaries and special features this has, and it's alien. It's crazy.
A ton is an understatement.
Yeah. Remember when remember the days when every Funimation release had commentaries? Those were good times.
Those were the times.
They were.
Actually, I did have one thing I wanted to ask about because this was the reason this specific group exists is because of an ongoing in-joke or in-statement that has gone around and circled for many years, and it was the phrase, real men watch Princess Tutu. And I want to at least understand a little bit of the history of that, if you didn't mind sharing, Noah?
Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, I was gonna circle that around into like what my own experience with this, because as opposed to you guys who hadn't seen the whole show until now, I saw the show a long time ago, back when the genesis of this podcast almost kind of came around. For those who don't know, about half of the members of the Dub Talk podcast group met each other in the forums of a now defunct anime review website called the Desu Des Brigade, or the D2 Brigade. What that was is, back in the early 2010s, when YouTube was still fucked, but not as bad as it is now. Like, you couldn't post anything on there at all without it getting copyright claimed. The alternative for people who reviewed anime or video games or anything else like that was to host your videos on another website, another video hosting platform, and then have those posted on an aggregate website. You think your Screw Attacks, your That Guy with the Glasses, your Machinimas, websites like that. This is bad timing to mention.
No, that's correct timing, because all of this is like very important childhood memories, and all of those are just gone and dying, and
yeah. Like, specifically this is like the same week that Rooster Teeth got shut down, for those listening in the future.
Yeah.
But back in the good old days.
But hopefully those guys will be fine, but like, yeah.
It has been a shit year for the entertainment industry.
It has, and also, for those who don't know, Funimation.com is going down coming up soon. But back in the good old days, when you could have aggregate sites, the 5 individuals known as the D2 Brigade were Professor Otaku of Anime Dissection, Arcada from Glass Reflection, Yesu Otaku of the Yesu Otaku Anime Review, Vixen from Vixen's Anime Reviews, and Malachi, who did a lot of admin work and also edited the Pocky Spot episodes. And if you understood all the words in that sentence, then you apply for a AAA senior rewards card, because you've been around for a while. But anyways, that group was instrumental for a lot of people. It was like a good collection ground for anime fans. If you didn't want to get lost in the sea of like Anime News Network, things like Crunchyroll and Funimation didn't really have a resounding fan base where people could like use the forums quite yet. So D2 Brigade was the place where a lot of people met to discuss anime, watch reviews of them, have live streams. It was a really good time. It was like the equivalent of having your anime club accessible on your laptop where you could enjoy it in between your college days. And to go back to what Andrew was saying very quickly, the reason why the phrase "real men watch Princess Tutu" came about came from one of those reviewers, Arcada, who is still around, who is still making videos today on his YouTube channel, reviewed the show Princess Tutu in early 2010, and included at the end of the phrase, "real men watch Princess Tutu," because the title evokes girliness and ballerinas and magical girls and things that aren't considered manly. Now, obviously, we've undergone a lot of psychosis about gender stereotypes and everything in the last 10 years.
The cultural zeitgeist has changed a little bit about that stuff.
I mean, not too much. I mean, some younger folks don't remember this, but hey, remember what happened when Free first came out?
Boy. Oh God, yes, I do.
It's really like you think things feel so forever ago, and then you're like, man, that was single-digit years ago. Fuck.
And so yeah, the whole phrase of "real men watch Princess Tutu" became an in-joke for our group, for mostly because well, I'll talk about what the premise of the show is in a bit, but basically the show did not do super well in sales when it first came out. Justin Savakis from Media OCD and Anime News Network has actually talked before about how Central Park Media, when he worked there, actually had the chance to license the show, and it was very popular as a fan sub in 2003 when it first came out. So Justin was like to his boss, "You got to pick up this show." They didn't. ADV picked it up, and it wasn't a huge seller for them. Even the actors had mentioned on commentaries on this release that it's like the underdog show that's not getting as much attention as our stuff that's coming around at that time period. So, everyone who's seen it, though, like who actually got past the title and has actually watched it, seems to really like it. And these guys can attest to that, too, when we get to talking about it.
This is a cult classic in every step of the word. it is like, you can tell that this is a show that was never destined to be a mainstream, most common denominator type hit. This is for like 20 people, but for the 20 people, this is like pivotal to who they are. This is like a show that made them. This is a show people grew up on, defined them, changed their perspective of media. It is one of those shows. So this is not a thing that moves units. This is a thing that moves hearts and minds.
Mm-hmm.
And like, even as somebody who never grew up with it, yeah, I could fucking see why this would be special to a lot of people. But yeah, mostly the Real Men Watch Princess Tutu statement is more or less just saying, do not read the title, scoff, and then assume you are above it. 1, you are fucking not. 2, get your preconceptions out the window and give this a chance. Because if you give this a chance, I think you're going to find something pretty goddamn special.
Absolutely. I will paraphrase what Jacob Chapman said in his review from a long time ago, in that the test is basically, if you can still watch Disney princess movies at your age with pride, you will be able to enjoy Princess Tutu just fine. It is that level of child friendliness mixed with a lot of fairy tale magic. Yeah, so let's actually talk about what the plot of the show is, because we've gone a bit here and haven't actually said what it's about. It is not actually the anime version of Black Swan, although that would be very interesting to see. Now that they're making an animated version of Twilight, they should totally make an anime version of every Darren Aronofsky movie. But no,
man, there feels like a monkey's paw where it's like, why don't we make animated remakes of famous movies? And then the first one is like, oh, it's Twilight.
I've seen voice actors wishing for roles on that, so I'm not gonna piss their Cheerios.
Of course they are. I just think it's
funny. It could be interesting if nothing else. So, like,
yeah.
I'm much more likely to watch an animated version of Twilight than to like seek out the actual movie. So,
fair enough. So, Princess Tutu is well, if you've ever seen a magical girl show, it has a bit of that premise to it. So there is, in this fairy town called Gold Crown Town, a little yellow duck who lives in the lake, and she just wishes that she could see the prince smile, because there's this white-haired princely character named Muto who always comes to the lake. She watches him dance, but he's so sad looking, he's got no heart inside of him, and she just wishes that she could do something to help him smile. Well, monkey paw curling, her wish is heard by this mythological, benevolent, bug-eyed character named Drosselmeyer, which, yes, that is a reference to the Nutcracker, if those of you know your Broadway, or not Broadway, your
oh my god,
ballet shows.
You're fucking, oh my god, you fucking uncultured swine.
There's a lot of references in this. So Drosselmeyer says, all right, you want to help him out? Boom, here's a pendant. It will turn you into a girl, so you can be a human again, and it will also give you superpowers. This pendant is going to turn you into Princess Tutu, which she's like a magical girl, but her magical gift is dance. She dons ballerina outfit, she can dance on point, and her dancing basically has the ability to do fantastical things that help characters out. Specifically, the goal of the show is to find the shards of the prince's heart, because that's why he's so sad. And so it's an episodic story of her traveling around this town, turning into Princess Tutu, finding the shards of the heart, and returning them to the prince. Or is it?
Which, that is basically where people draw the magical girl comparisons, is the character of the day, you help out the little problem, you face a monster, then you get like a magical jewelry thing or something.
Yeah, you know, the basics of your average pre-care season.
Yeah.
Not inaccurate. Not inaccurate at all. Not surprisingly, because the chief director of this show was Junichi Sato, who is probably best known for being a director on the first season of Sailor Moon.
Okay, that's what you were talking about, Jet.
Yep.
Yeah. Although I should give credit also to I want to say like the actual creator of the show. This is the brainchild of Ikuko Aito, who did a lot of animation direction and character designs for Sailor Moon, but she had been like contemplating this story, this fairy tale story mixed with magical girl tropes since like the late 90s. So this show had actually been gestating for quite a while.
This feels like a passion project to somebody, so that doesn't surprise me to hear that.
Yeah.
Like, everything about this just feels like it is a labor of love and, like, intense, careful thought about the way this weird world works and how these characters interwove and intertwine with one another.
Well, it's and also the passion of being commentative on the fairy tale tropes and the ballet tropes that it talks about. Because every episode, if you've seen the show, is named after a famous dance or ballet, or at the very least, a famous piece of theater.
Mm-hmm. There's, like, Swan Lake, there's Giselle, Crime and Punishment, where it was another one.
The famous Actually, what's Crime and Punishment about?
I know it's a book. I know it's a book.
Yeah. I think it was like books or like ballets or like. Drosselmauer's a storyteller, so he just picked up a bunch of like known stories, and there you go.
That he does. And Drosselmeyer is a bastard. We'll get it right out there in the open because he wants a bad ending. He wants a sad ending for these. Because if you're going to have a magical girl show where the prince is not supposed to get together with the main character, it's gonna be a drama, dang it.
This show has things to say, let's go with that. But we should probably introduce the behind-the-scenes players that hold this one together.
So, like I said, a couple other studios passed on this. ADV, may they rest in peace. I mean, I know they're just still Sentai Filmworks, but it feels like we lost a little magic when ADV went under in 2009.
I mean, we did lose certain people, so I guess it kind of gives and take.
Yeah, they had to adapt to a different environment. Like, this was the time when the show was being released, like, in volumes. Fun fact, also, the first volume of the show came out in, like, early 2005, and then the second volume didn't come out till late 2005. So they had a long stretch of time where they were not continuing this show. Luckily, they did finish it. It just took a long time to happen.
This was the mid-2000s. They could have straight up canceled this show and this dub, and this would have been an incomplete product, and we wouldn't be here today.
Thankfully, it was not incomplete, and we have two main people to thank for that. We have our ADR director and our scriptwriter to thank for that, along with all the other behind-the-scenes producer people at ADV. Our ADR director is Mr. Jin Ho Chung, and our scriptwriter was Mike Yantasco.
Who?
And if I mention those names, did any one of you guys recognize those names just by me saying them out loud?
Not at all.
No, not at all. I did not watch a lot of ADV stuff. I figured even, like, as somebody who's watched Sentai stuff, I figured maybe there'd be some overlap between, like, a couple of early, maybe modern Sentai people. I was not familiar with either of these people until this covering of this dub. What have they worked on?
See, people listening, this is why I'm so happy, because I get to teach these gentlemen here who just haven't gone back and watched the mid-2000s stuff, some stuff that they've never been exposed to before, and it's good.
I can't see you right now, but I can just imagine you just stroking your goddamn media studies ego right now, like just ready to teach a bunch of poor, naive children the ways of how it used to be, and I just see the shit-eating grin in your voice.
I'm not that much older. I'm like the same age as Jet and Jamal, and only a few years older than you. I just happen to study older stuff.
You have procreated, so that automatically means that, like, physically, you are 15 years older than all of us.
Fair enough. So, talking about the people behind this. So, just to mention some titles, maybe you guys have at least heard of some of these shows that they've worked on before. Jin Ho Chung has, he's done quite a bit of ADR directing from that mid-2000s era. He directed the dub for Tokyo Majin. He directed the dub for Magical Detective Loki Ragnarok. And he unfortunately directed one of my least favorite dubs ever made, Elfen Lied, which is a show I'm sure you guys have all at least heard of before.
Oh, he did Elfen Lied? Okay, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yes. And then over to Mike. Mike has also done quite a few titles that you've heard of before. He wrote the scripts for Full Metal Panic and Full Metal Panic Famofu, which is a show that I really need to get into because I just finished watching what's it called? Amagi Brilliant Park, which is from the same writer team people, and I've been told that the comedy in Fumofo is very similar, so I need to get around to watching that. Mike also was scriptwriter for Azumanga Daioh, very good show, and something that ties into Princess Tutu heavily, he was also the scriptwriter of Petite Princess Yusi, which is a Gainax show that not many people have heard of before, but I can hear Megan in the background. Megan loves this show to pieces, and I know that she's excited that we're talking about it in even a little capacity. With that being said, I'm going to kickstart this conversation by just addressing one thing. The translations for this show, for the most part, very faithful. The one thing that they kind of addressed that they decided to change and got a little flack for, but I don't think they should have, is the translation of the main character, Duck. They could have kept the name as it was written in the Japanese, which I believe is pronounced Ahiru, but they didn't do that because it actually translates to duck. So they decided to actually name her Duck in the dub because Aharu is not really a name that you could give someone in Japanese. It makes more sense to just translate it as the English word duck.
Like, there's a couple of name puns that you can kind of, like, look into and see the phonetic transformation of it. Like I was thinking about it with Rui and Kreihi, where it's like, okay, I can see what they are going for with Rui and Kreihi. They're just different variations of Crow.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how, like, literally I would not know how we would get from Ahiru to Duck. So if they just said, Ahiru, you're just like a duck. It's like, just like your name. It's like, huh?
Yeah.
It's just like that one cat I've been seeing going around that just does the little, huh? Yeah, I can see that being a controversial choice. I think at the time, and honestly still today, I think it's a correct choice. I'm just a duck. I'm a duck who's just a duck. Yeah, like, it works. It's simple, it's a little silly, it's a little redundant. You're watching a fucking anime about ballerinas and magical girls and meta-narratives about stories. Slightly silly.
Yeah.
And that's not even getting into the fact that immediately after that you meet Anteater Rita.
Yay! Oh, they had so much. They've said on the commentaries they had so much fun picking out pun names for the animals, like Crocodilia,
Armadillo,
or Gote, and it's like, yes, this is what fun dubbing jobs was for. Armadillo, that's a great one.
Armadillo's pretty good.
Chihuahua.
Not the name that Chihuahuan. Chihuahuan I can't get over because I heard the voice and I literally was like, did they just fucking give a
Princess
Chihuahua
Tutu?
the fucking Yo Quiero Taco Bell voice?
What else? What else could they possibly use? Yo Quiero Princess Tutu.
I still remember those crappy those commercials.
It was such a different time, dudes.
Okay, I mean, to me, it's still not as funny as Miss Goatee just making actual goat noises. That was incredible.
Yeah, the world of strange humanoid furry animals is surreal, to say the least. Which they do address later. But this is, for a mid-2000s dub, this still holds up actually really well.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it's pretty solidly directed for the most part. Like, it definitely, you can definitely hear its age in some places, but but never to the point where it came off as like distracting. I think you could show it to like a modern anime viewer, and they would probably enjoy it just fine. There are definitely one or two performances that I do think sound like maybe a little stilted compared to how I'm used to those actors sounding now. But aside from that, I was like pretty happy with the dub.
And I think how much of that is like a bad performance compared to the fact that they were at the time a much greener actor. I think like we're not going to talk about them right away, but some of the main characters of Princess Tutu are very veteran actors we are very familiar with, and they were like early to mid-20s when they recorded this.
Oh, okay. Are you referencing the commentary where Lucy and Chris were like, we just turned 24 years old?
Okay, you're just going for it. All right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, they were lying, okay? They were lying when they said that. That was a joke.
Wait, they were?
They were in their mid-30s when they recorded this.
We're a year older.
We're a year older. Dear God in heaven.
Thank you.
I just turned 24. It's so exciting.
Really?
And you're 22 now.
Yeah.
So that is so hot.
Pretty
okay,
much.
Let's date.
Okay.
Okay, that is...
Yeah,
Context does help there, I guess. Wow, yeah.
Yeah, I don't...
They're still younger. Still,
yeah.
but...
Yes. Like, I think a lot of people that in the voice acting sphere who we're familiar with are usually in like their late 20s to early 30s when they, not that they are new to the scene, but like when they kind of get like leading roles because they put in the legwork for a couple of years.
But also there's some people that break in and break out pretty young nowadays too. There is a Viewer's Choice nominee for Best Leading Performance in a Dub this year for the Dub Talk W Awards, who is 24.
You know what? That's fair. It's
a
range.
I made it easy to forget now.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Zach Aguilar was like, what, 19 when he got Genos, I think?
Oh yeah, he was really young when he broke in. So yeah, but...
Well, yeah, so the overall acting on this and the direction to boot.
I think my point still stands is that they were still less experienced, less veteran actors than they absolutely are now.
Agreed.
Even if the actual number was a lie.
Yeah, I also do think the translation was pretty solid. I do have to dock at least a couple of points for the dubbing, like maybe a little overly literal in places, for which I guess is kind of a product of the time. And by that I mean like senior Muto and things like that. It's like
I'm glad they dropped the senior thing because I do agree that was a little clunky. I know they're going for senpai, but it's like
that was in the original they were saying senpai, and that's
of course.
A good point of the like cross-cultural things going on here is we don't have that in the West. We don't have that senior student kohai dynamic necessarily.
It also didn't help that like thanks to that I also couldn't tell if like all the name pronunciation.
Yeah, that was.
How these names are actually supposed to be pronounced, or just like in 2000s, like
Muto, right?
You mean Lilie and PK?
Not even that. Not even them. Like I went through most of the show assuming that Rue was like Rui, that Muto was actually supposed to be Mifo. Because like when I look at the name, that's what I think. It's like it looks like Mifo, like Mythos. That's how I would pronounce that name.
Yeah. That being said, though, I think it might have given the game away a little too much if they had pronounced it like that, just because it would it doesn't sound like a real name. Not that Muto itself sounds like the name of a person you've ever met before, but it's less distracting if it sounds too much like the word myth.
That I could get. The Japanese language is fucking obsessed to a psychotic degree with puns, dudes. You have no idea.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think of a lot of the behind-the-scenes footage and like the in the studio sessions or the commentaries with the writers and such was about how they did their best to adapt the stories and the writing by trying to find what the source material was, because almost every episode is like a reference to Swan Lake or the Dance Macabre or the Black Shoes or some dark, grim fairy tale from the past. Overall, I think that they actually did a very good job of making sure that the dialogue still flowed, but if needed, trying to throw in some sort of a note by the way the characters speak, so that you know what fairy tale is being talked about.
Like, even if I don't know all of the sources or I can't cite all of the sources, something about the execution of this dub feels like the people and everybody on it did their homework, and it shows greatly in the final product. Especially even when you're like considering this is an early 2000s dub, and so you have to suspend a little bit of what you are used to in a modern day setting for the mid 2000s era. It still sounds really good considering even that.
Yeah, I think a lot of the behind the scenes footage, what Jin was going for in capturing that that tone that you were talking about, is trying to make all the actors feel very comfortable. Like, there is a visceral joy in seeing the actors smiling on camera because they're like, this is a lot of fun to do. I'm hyped up on coffee. Maybe this isn't like paying the most, but god damn it, I am happy to be in this recording booth, recording lines for this talking duck ballerina show.
Basically, you're getting everybody comfortable in a way that it feels like they could read storybooks at a local library.
That is correct. Jet, you mentioned something about, while we were in the middle of our rewatch over the last weeks, something about the mixing sounding very mid-2000s, dude. Do you want to expand upon that a little bit?
Yeah, like the mixing was like a little muted in some places, which...
Don't you mean Muto?
Get out, get out.
But like, I normally don't pay too much attention to that sort of thing, so I just ignored it. But the part of mixing that did, like, actively, like, throw me for a loop was that, like, I think it was, like, specifically, like, the first few episodes specifically, so I don't know if it was just, like, maybe a problem with, like, Sentai's streaming player, but, like, whenever you would hear Duck's inner thoughts, you could, like Duck was, like, you know, doing internal monologues, you could, like, hear the mic echoing, and it was, like, it was pretty distracting.
I think I actually heard a little bit of that in the early episodes, too. So I don't think that's just a you thing, or do I think it's just a streaming player?
Yeah, there was definitely the sound of, like, you're recording this in a not entirely padded room, like you get a little bit of that echo from a room noise kind of thing.
There's a little bit of leeway, like, never forget anime's, like, literally recorded stuff in, like, a cave, I think.
Like, I still remember watching the original Fruits Basket dub a few years ago and thinking to myself, Eric Vale sounds like a serial killer talking into a tin cone around his neck.
Ouch.
Back then, they were also using what was called the chase method, where instead of having 3 beeps, then you go out the invisible fourth, they just pretty much went for it. So there was some time that they needed to adjust or so. So probably they didn't get everything right the first couple of times, but they eventually got it right like the 3rd or 4th time.
Yeah, we saw a lot of takes being done in those behind-the-scene footage, which is, again, kind of a testament to the direction in that you can hear the variations on how to read even a single line that's being told, and it's like, okay, so like, add a little more breathy. No, a little more worried. No, slightly hopeless. And it's like those slight variations, not only is it a testament to the direction from Jin being able to, like, explain that this is what he's going for, but the actors, for the most part, like, picked up on it pretty well. Like, they got what needed to be changed, were able to make those modifications, even adding some of their own flavor now and then, like offering suggestions for how to do things. Like, there's one character who he's saying, like, will you please be quiet? And he suggests, do you want me to do it like a stage whisper? Do you want me to do it like a, will you please be quiet? Just to give the, you know, the mixing team some variable options to work with, and from there they can pick out the best take.
I mean, when you're writing a narrative like this, a narrative unlike any I've ever seen before, you gotta be able to weave the structure of it very carefully, because you're basically writing a story within a story within a story and so on.
So meta.
It is so meta. And I think, credit to Mike where it counts, the man did a very good job rising to the charge with what he had to deal with. But also, now you mentioned the translations and stuff, I also noticed, because I make it a habit to read the credits just to see, like, who was on what. And I saw some names that I've seen before on Funimation stuff, namely a couple of the translators that were working on this, because I've seen them work on stuff like Space Daddy at the very least. So when you say that everybody was green, I think maybe they had a little more experience when it came to the translation stuff. It was just, it all came down to choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of people.
And then on top,
I feel like you're right that when you see the translator credits for one show, you look back in time, they've probably been doing this for quite a while.
I mean, they have this. I was surprised to see they were at ADV before they were at Funimation, because this was way before Space Daddy and all the other stuff.
Oh yeah, we're going to talk about quite a few people who like would make the jump to Funimation or even other studios later on.
There was one name in the additional voices credit I was surprised to see on the Houston dub, because she was in LA before she came to Dallas.
Is this one of the actors we're going to talk about in the main discussion here?
No.
Oh. You want to say who it is?
Okay.
Yeah, it's Jennifer Alex.
Really?
Wow.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, I can vouch for that. I remember they showed up in the familiar Zero and Little Witch Academia prior to making the move.
I completely missed that in the various voices credits.
My basic thing is I walked away from this like relatively like impressed, like even like I said, even having the context of having to give a little benefit of the doubt of a slightly aged product, like even the slightly aged product, like no, that still sounds real good.
I think a lot of the strengths of that, Andrew, can come from the fact that a lot of these actors were stage actors before they'd gotten to voice acting.
Yeah.
They make mention of a lot of the stage performances they've done.
And Princess Tutu is a show that fucking adores the stage.
That it does.
Absolutely admonishes it, worships the ground it walks upon.
Yeah.
And yeah, that probably helps a little too.
Yeah. And you hear that sound? You guys hear that sound in the background? That is all of the theater nerds just squeeing for joy.
I know she's in the other room, maybe asleep right now, but I can guarantee you she is squeeing with joy. She's been telling me to watch this show for very years, and I was like, oh my god, it's so good, it's so good. And yeah, she was right.
Yeah. So why is the show so good? Let's move on to our first set of characters, and maybe we'll figure out why the show is actually so good. So
this show is so good exactly because of this little blonde bitch. She is the best, noblest, most...
I should have known you were going to be a Lily girl. A Lily guy.
I'm gonna have words.
Good, excellent. Let's do that. Before we get into the words, let's talk about who these people are. I say people with an asterisk because one of them is not actually a person. So we're gonna...
Racist. What you got against cat guys?
Catist. It's catist. Speciesist, whatever it is. The characters here, I'm referring to them as a group because these are the school folks. These are the people who we interact with in the ballet class. Because yes, not only is the show features a super-powered ballerina, but as her mild-mannered alter ego Duck, she also attends a school that does nothing but teach ballet.
I don't think that's true.
I'm sorry, they only do ballet. There are other subsections in the school for mimes and theaters and music and sculpting.
It's an art school, basically.
Yes, it is a school of the arts, but it is very clear that, like, Duck and her friends are specifically in the ballet division.
Yes, if you've ever seen the show Recess from back in the 90s, that episode where Spinelli is drawing drawing chalk art, and then they're like, hey, you guys are here to see this. You guys don't go to this school. Of course not. We're from Skooma, the alternative art school from downtown. We're here to see the amazing Chalk Girl in action.
There were so many places you could have gone with that. I wasn't expecting fucking Recess.
That is why we are good friends. I love throwing you for a loop, Andrew.
I mean that seems pretty on brand for now, honestly.
Speaking of being thrown for a loop,
the character, Mr. Cat. Mr. Cat is the anthropomorphic cat character and is the first indication that something's not right in the state of Gold Crown Town because he is. You ever seen The Cat Returns? You ever seen that Ghibli movie or Night on the Galactic Railroad? It is that. He is a 6 foot tall talking cat character who teaches ballet with a human voice, but it talks like a lisp like this. And yeah, he's constantly asking people to marry him. No, not asking. He is threatening to make you marry him if you fail your ballet class.
So is that a thing? Is that a reference to something?
Probably, but I must say, like, I really do have to wonder where that man's teaching credentials are, because like I'm pretty sure if you just go around saying you want to marry your students, like someone would arrest you.
I'd rather have him neutered, to be honest.
You don't have to not be neutered to get married.
No, but it would deter him.
Yes. Well, Bob
Okay.
Barker clear never saw this show. So, speaking of the ballet class, 2 of his students are also the 2 psychotic best friends of Duck. And that is
Okay, one's perfectly
Okay.
reasonable, and then the other is Lilie.
PK and Lilie are definitely a carryover from the trend of magical girls needing to have 2 best friend characters. In this show, they mostly serve to exposit exposition because Duck is clueless as hell, and so she needs to be told things like, "You've never heard of the Fire Festival?" Or, "Didn't you know that the ballet troupe is coming?"
Oh,
I'm sorry, I fucking forgot that it was actually called the Fire Festival.
yeah, what the fuck?
With that special animal star, Ja Rule.
Hey, Duck! Did you get your expensive meal yet? All I got was some tinfoil and some dog shit.
Yeah.
Duck!
Well, yeah,
everybody's waiting
that
in
brought
the porta
some
potties.
that brought up some bad choo-choo already.
They're doing drugs over there. It's so good. Oh, they're going to ruin their lives forever. Oh, I can't wait to pick up a hot mess.
The voice that Andrew is attempting to imitate is Lilie, is the blonde one. And like they were saying, PK is the more reasonable, down-to-earth one. Lilie is just psychotic. She is very much the fangirl who loves the debauchery in these kind of messed up magical girls. I'm sorry. Go Jet.
No, I was just gonna say no. She's just like an actual sadist.
So, like, you mentioned that it's like the trend of magical girl shows to have like 2 best friends. Are they parodies of that trend?
No, I was gonna say they just gotta seem very part of the course.
Oh, that they are just the normal trend. One is just a hyper bitch.
They're. I'd like to think that the trope has continued to exist, so they've got to exist. But they decided, well, we can have a little fun with this trope, and so it's like their trope just gets kind of ramped up a little bit more in this show.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, she gives me like Tomoyo Daidoji vibes from Cardcaptor Sakura, but with
Yes.
with sadism thrown in for the mix.
No, if they had cameras in this, then Lilie would totally be that character.
Oh god, the last thing she needs is a camera.
That's true. Thank God technology doesn't exist in this world.
She feels like she would commit crimes.
Now, the one who does commit crimes, questionably, is our last character we're going to talk about, which is Autor. Yes, that is the German translation for author. Another great.
Oh my god. Oh my fucking. Oh, it's all fucking puns. Anyways.
It's not even a pun. It's just it's gratuitous.
It's all
English.
wordplay.
Not even wordplay. It's just translations of other languages and decided to make them into names. It'd be like the equivalent of, I don't know, if you had all your characters named after freezers and the things that were found in them.
Yes, you have your yogurts, you have your you have your butters, your birders. Yeah. I get where you're going.
Okay,
with that.
I got where you were going.
Wait, that's
with that.
literally a fucking pun. What the fuck are you talking about?
Well, that's not even where my brain. That's not even where my brain went. I thought I was talking about like freeze and like just that entire line, just that entire family.
That's exactly where I was going for.
That's literally a pun. That's literally wordplay. You're like, oh, that's just taking the word in the other language. That's what it fucking is. That's
But
what
it's
it is.
Okay, alright, fine. So, we have to have actors for these characters. We need to have an English translation for their Japanese
Sure,
characters.
dodge the question on me. Okay.
And so, Mr. Cat is voiced by... So he's credited as TJP, is what Mr. Cat's English voice actor is. Now, I don't think we really need to, like, hide pseudonyms or anything like that, so I'm gonna call him out. This is Adam Waite, is probably the name that he's more well-known by, although he's gone with the pseudonym TJP in quite a few things. He's also gone by the...
I thought his name was Todd.
Nope, it's Adam Waite, or T. Postlethwaite, which is the more fun pseudonym that he used. He likes to mix up his pseudonyms for some reason.
What is all of this?
That's a good question that I'm not going to answer. So,
Much like the cat, what was he smoking?
That's another
Oh
good
my
question we're not going to answer. So that's Mr. Cat. PK is voiced by the wonderful Cynthia Martinez. Lilie is voiced by the equally wonderful Sasha Paysinger. And Autor is voiced by Adam Conlon. Credits. TJP has voiced quite a few things from that same era of ADV stuff. If you watched Red Garden, you may remember him as Dr. Bender. If you saw the Sentai release of Gogol 13, he was Flanagan in that. And if you're more of a gamer and you saw the Halo OVA, he played the Prophet in the dub for that.
Oh, was he one of the Sangheili? Oh, you wouldn't know what
I wouldn't know what
Sangheili
that is. I'm going to say yes, it was. Yes, he was. Absolutely, Andrew. And yes, pigs can fly.
You are the audience the new Halo show is for.
Ouch! Ouch! That's not what I subscribed Paramount Plus for. I'm insulted, man. Get out of here! I'm gonna get you out of here with my fangirls PK and Lily here. Because Cynthia Martinez, now that's a name that I hope all of you have heard of before. She is more... she does a lot of work for ADV and Sentai, more so in that mid-2000s era. Her breakout role was actually as Lena Inverse. And I hear some of you people saying, no, Lena Inverse was voiced by Lisa Ortiz, I know that. And very good, you win the no prize, because that was for the TV show. Cynthia voiced Lena Inverse for the Slayers movies, because the movies were actually licensed by ADV. So if you can find those old DVDs and you're listening to the dub for that, you may recognize, Lena sounds a little different. And that's because she's voiced by Cynthia.
Isn't anime licensing fun?
No, it's not. No, it's not. And we're going to actually get into quite a few of those in other instances I'm going to mention here. But yeah, Cynthia's done quite a bit of stuff. My favorite role of hers is Hermes from the original Kino's Journey dub. And to mention something more recent that you may have heard her in, she played Mikun in School Life, aka the undercover slut, as Gigi has dubbed her.
That was the thing, wasn't it?
That's a deep cut. Yeah, no, I do remember her most as Miki from School Life.
Yes. Now moving over to Lilie.
And I guess she was Ilya from Fate Khalid, I guess.
I wasn't going to mention that, but you're more than welcome to mention it. That's a good tell. It lets people know what you're into.
Oh, fuck off. Fuck you.
Speaking of sadists, Lilie's Sasha Paysinger. Again, a lot of stuff from like the mid-2000s era. I don't think she's been in as much stuff more recently. Like, I recognize her in stuff like Marie in Sister Princess, Nana in Elfen Lied, and also Asami in Mezzo. Not the hentai version. No. The TV series. Not the hentai Mezzo, but the TV version of that.
What a statement.
What a statement. Had to reference that because I didn't want people getting the wrong idea. And finally, Adam Conlon. It's also done some stuff in that mid 2000s time period. That really kind of hasn't done as much voice acting nowadays. But if you've heard him in anything, you probably heard him as the lead male of Kota in Elfen Lied, because that's where he's got to... I don't like that dub. I'm sorry, I'm just not a big fan of that dub.
It's been many years.
Yeah, maybe we'll readdress that for a future episode. But yeah, he was like Octo in Gilgamesh, and you can hear him as background voices in things like Cromartie High School and Azumagadayo. Quite a bit of like Wallace stuff from what ADV was dubbing around that time as well.
Adam Conlon is probably one of the only characters that maybe took me a few minutes to get, because we didn't see this character till the last third of the show?
Much.
Okay, correction. He was there in the entire back half of the show. He spent half of it being like, shh, be quiet.
Oh, he was the guy in the library.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
See, it's already getting to me. So.
He was just the guy in the library. So when he popped up again, and I was like, wait, you're important? I literally said that exact words. Wait, you matter?
I haven't had a moment like that since Greg Ayers and Angel Beats.
Motherfucker, like, fucking Mandark-looking asshole over here is suddenly just like a plot exposition and might be in a cult? And might be 23andMe? I don't know.
I mean, it's fair to call the, what are they called, the book burners or whatever they are, it's fair to call them a cult.
The Bookmen.
Yes, that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, hey, to be fair, their intentions do seem like reasonable. If some
Yeah.
going around distorting reality, you might want to cut off his hands.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
Their intent.
I mean,
They may be scary-looking cult creepers, but their goal is basically the same as any JRPG party: to kill God.
Yeah, no, that's accurate. And Auteur is the one who, I guess, discovers that one of the characters we're going to talk about in a bit here is actually a descendant of Drosselmeyer and has the power to, basically, if you write it, it will happen. This existed before Death Note, by the way.
By like a few years.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, so...
But, God...
Yeah.
Yeah, Auteur... Everything about that dude, he looks like such a smug piece of shit, and I want to punch him in the face.
But I think that's...
Yeah.
Sorry, I think Adam got that. I think, like, he was the exact right amount of smarmy, that it's... I can't fault him for being what the character called for.
Oh no, yeah, he absolutely did what was asked of that particular role, and that was to make this little stuck-up little jackass seem like a stuck-up little jackass. And he's a little bit of a whiner where he's like, why couldn't I be the guy? Why couldn't I be the cool guy with the cool power to alter reality? I did so much work, I did so much thing, why are you the guy? It's like, you don't fucking matter. You look like Mandark.
Yeah, like I didn't have too much of an opinion on Adam's performance. I thought he sounded fine, but like it was probably one of the less distinct performances of the main cast, so I didn't have like too strong an opinion on him. But I felt like he did what he needed to.
Yeah,
he did a good job, yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a good example of how, like, even the smaller, I'm not say smaller, but characters with less dialogue get well directed, because there's sections in the behind the scenes about, you know, him giving them multiple takes or being able to adapt to what's being asked of him, and I think that's worth calling out, because that is a skill that not every performer or wannabe performer possesses.
Yeah, because I've definitely heard some dubs where like the background performances do kind of hurt the final product, so that is an important skill.
Who is not in the background is Mr. Cat, because we got to talk about TJP. The thing I'll call out on this is that you don't usually give a character a lisp on purpose. You're not supposed to do that, and they let him do this. I don't know if it was his idea to do that, because it doesn't quite sound like the Japanese. Like, this is very much a liberal adaptation.
I'm shocked that this is not how this character sounds in Japanese. I'm shocked.
It's a different archetype in Japanese.
I'm going to guess this is like he's got a very deep voice in Japanese.
Not deep, but regal. Like because the joke is supposed to be that he sounds regal normally, so that when he's like, "I'll have you marry me," it's supposed to contrast with his more put together persona.
Oh, so when he goes off the rails is when the lisp is necessary. Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can kind of get that here. Like even with the list, you can tell that he's like trying his best to sort of sound like regal and professional, and like be a model teacher. And then whenever he goes off the rails, you do kind of hear him snap a bit.
Like you can definitely tell TJP is playing Mr. Cat like all the drama teachers and instructors that he has known in his life. He's maybe not known all of them that were overtly asking to like marry his students, but I think it's very clear that that level of like sassy, like picked perfect teacher bordering on drill sergeant is a very familiar thing he's probably experienced as an actor in his field.
TJP does turn a good performance, given what the character has to deal with, but I think that's probably my one qualm with the character is like, I know he's supposed to be a bit of comic relief, but the whole marriage thing in most episodes is it's making me uncomfortable.
It's not great. I mean, for me, it was one of those things where like it wasn't great, but like it got repeated so much that somehow it like turned back around.
It kind of becomes strangely endearing.
no pun intended, it becomes nuded after a while, but it still kind of makes me uncomfortable in the back of my head. So
It's one of those you don't have to, it's one of those just don't think too deeply about it.
I don't think too deeply about it, just because of the sheer absurdity of the image of the regal, giant pussycat ballerina man. He's just a very strange character, and say what you will, TJP sure plays him in a way that makes him stand out, and he's a very memorable performance where he's like, have you married me? It's like, I can't unhear the weird voice he does, and he plays him so very neurotically. Well, like, he can sometimes be very calm and, like, cool, and it's like, it's such a contrast between his usual like it does actually sound like his little freakouts are like very close to what a cat hissing and growling would sound like, which props to DJP for doing.
And it makes
it is. I can't say this was a bad performance, because more than anything, this is an unforgettable performance in that it is so strange, but it is so distinct. There's a lot of ways that act like certain performances and certain deliveries I feel are just gonna live rent-free in my head now. So thanks, Princess Tutu.
It is nice that, whereas most of the human characters sound very like theatrical, kind of like you were talking about before, very Shakespearean in nature. I'm glad that they let the animal characters, not just Mr. Cat, but any other character who is also a talking animal, have a more cartoonish voice. Like, they gave the Taco Bell Chihuahua a voice, or they gave the snake character a voice, or the
fucking, what were the prairie dogs? And then one of them just screamed. Meerkats, yeah.
Yeah, those guys. Yeah, that was, that was pretty much in line with the Japanese, too. Like, it was also, like, very cartoonish sounding voices in the Japanese for most of the animal characters.
God, this was like 15 years before Beastars.
Yes, it was. Are you saying that this inspired the theater nerds played by talking animals of Beastar?
I can't say it wasn't at least a thing in one Paru Itagaki's mind, because the more I'm thinking about it, I threw that out as a bit, and I was like, wait a fucking second.
This does seem like a show you would watch, so.
This does feel like a show Paru Itagaki would be all about, actually, yeah.
Are we getting a season 3?
Yep.
Yes, we are.
Thank God. Okay.
It is going to be the last season. It is going to complete the manga.
Great. And are we getting a second season of Land of the Lustrous?
Don't ask questions you know the answers to.
Well, let me ask this question then. What do you guys think of both PK and Lilie in this? What do you think of Cynthia and Sasha as the... I'm going to keep calling them psychotic best friends, because that's what they are. I know PK is less demonic than Lilie, but...
PK is fine.
Yeah.
She's a good girl.
I'm gonna be honest. Like, these two sounded like really interchangeable to me in the beginning, which, like, I guess is sort of the point in a way. So
really, I disagree with that entirely. Sorry,
I think it's that, like, Cynthia plays like her PK with a lot more of like a stronger, like, I'm not sure how you can describe it.
I feel like they definitely do become more distinct over time. I feel like at the beginning they are just like those two friends. So, like, their personalities aren't like quite as distinct in the beginning.
I'm mostly just kind of shocked. I know this is about the performance. I'm kind of shocked how, like, there is no character development for Lilie.
She doesn't even get hypnotized and like
she doesn't get, like, emotionally manipulated by the fuckboy era Muto arc. It's just she's just like, the drama's so good. Kill each other for my amusement.
She's a dramatic addict. Sasha does a very good job making me want
drama whore.
It's so weird because I feel like because I feel like on paper, this is a character I would like normally like. Oh wow, she has a whole like cutesy thing going on, but she's that sweet saying it's like normally,
Yeah.
normally I would be all about that sort of thing. But I feel like the reason why this character doesn't work for me, like, she's too open about it. Like, she's just too like actively mean at all times. It's distracting.
Oh, Duck, it's okay.
Right.
You're so fucking stupid and brain dead and, like, would call her slurs. Like, would actively call her slurs.
I think probably my breaking point was when they're following Fakir, and he's meeting with his old friend, I think it's Retto, his name was, and then they're like, "No, Duck, don't look," and then she's just actively just putting Duck right in front.
Yeah, that was a breaking point.
Open your eyes for everything to see. Yeah, I'm like, man, fuck you.
Yeah,
man.
that whole pushing Duck into the way and be like, "Oh my goodness, what a terrible thing that happened." That was you who did that.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Sometimes friends will bust each other's balls in certain aspects, but that's kind of going too far, though. With the whole Fakir must be cheating on you, that kind of thing.
What I'm saying is Lilia is the type of bitch that would cyberbully you and tell you to KIS, and then be like, ha ha ha, besties, love you, duck face.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say that the inclusion of these two as an archetype for the magical girl genre is, I suppose, they got the most usage out of them for what they needed. Like, they weren't useless to the plot. They were kind of needed because we needed some characters to kind of explain to Duck, like, here's our conflict of the episode, or here's the new theater group that's coming in, or the mind group.
They were very much the exposition for, like, the one-off episodes for sure, because Duck was just so out of the loop.
No, Cynthia did pretty well. I don't hear her in a lot of comedy, so when I heard her as PK, I thought she did pretty good for what the role was needed, especially with the whole bit when she gets captured in order to be sacrificed. I thought that was a pretty neat take. And Sasha did a very good job as Lilia. I just do not care for Lilia. Like,
I don't think any of us care for this character, but it, like, in the same way of Mr. Cat, it's hard to say that she doesn't have a presence. She has a very strong, lasting, striking presence. Like, you know she has a burn book. You know she has a burn book.
I'm sure she does. There's a lot of books in this book within a book.
Oh my god, you fucking goddamn bitch. You are letting me down so hard.
How about we use that as a segue to move on from the, like, I'm sorry, has everyone kind of got their I think that covers all the talking points on this quartet of characters here. I'll wrap this up by saying
I like Cynthia and Sasha. They definitely have very memorable performances as well too. PK I think is at least a fun character who I think means well, and Lilia is a character who has never meant well in her entire life, but Sasha's doing a pretty good job.
I'll agree with that. With that being said, I think we can use this as a segue then into, away from the school and into the fantasy characters of the show. We're going to talk about four main, technically five, 4 and 2 and 1. We're going to talk about a couple of different actors here. These are all the characters that are fantastical in nature, definitely part of the fairy tale aesthetic, and as such gives us a lot of interesting performances to talk about. First, we got to talk about the fuckman himself. We got to talk about Drosselmeyer. This is the guy, this is the man, the myth, the legend, who has the power to make things come to life from what he writes. And apparently, according to one of the intros, the nobles were asking him to use that power to grant them wealth and power and stuff like that. And he did, but he also screwed them over and had, like, bad things happen as well. So
of course, because if you have the power to do what you want, you're not going to give people exactly what they want. It's called being a genie.
That it is. He is Norm Macdonald.
Sorry, what?
But none of you guys watch The Fairly Odd Parents? None of you?
Okay, it's been years.
Every single one of you.
Okay. Noah, you literally just were like, you completely no-sold a fucking Mean Girls reference I made. So no, I will not acknowledge your fucking Fairly Odd Parents reference.
Okay, no, it's because you said the full name that threw me off. If you just said like Norm and Genie, I would have gotten it. But you said like Norm McDonald, I couldn't.
Really?
Oh my god. All right. This is a lot of We are just... okay.
So yeah, Drosselmeyer, so he's dead at the beginning of the story, and yet somehow his soul is still in purgatory of some sort. Basically, he's still writing the story, and because he wrote himself into the story itself that we are watching, he's still allowed to exist as a character, despite technically being dead.
He is not still writing the story. He wrote himself into a corner of the universe, and now he is trying to push the story along in directions that he thinks would be most desirable and most entertaining to him, but he is no longer the writer in control.
Mm-hmm.
He is just kind of the observer that's trying to make things go the way he wants.
If I mentioned Autu the Watcher, would any of you get that?
But if you mentioned Lack the Watcher, I'd get that.
See, none of these people watch the What If series. Oh well.
My dad has Disney Plus. I don't have access to his account yet.
Man, this isn't an embarrassing level of
episode.
do any of you get this exact reference and nobody getting this exact reference. All of these balls are flying over all of our heads. This is kind of embarrassing.
Well, whoever is telling the story then, who's actually telling the story, is actually the narrator. And yes, we're going to talk about the narrator. They're not a character that we see. But every episode starts with a once upon a time narration about either the story we're watching or a kind of a retelling
Brief
of a
little
famous,
synopsis of what's happening.
A retelling of a famous fairy tale that has like a little bit of a twist on it. The Cinderella was taken by the prince and made marry together. But did the prince actually fall for the maiden? Like, she's poor. Why did she actually fall in love? We don't know. So there's a narrator that's kind of essential, I feel, to setting the tone for the show. And as a heads up, there's actually going to be 2 actresses we're talking about for this because they changed the actress halfway through, and we'll talk about why that happened when we get to that. Speaking of other characters, though, we need to talk about Adel. In the first half of the show, Adel is a green-haired puppet character who is basically helping to move the story along by giving Duck what she needs or telling her what she needs to do. Only we find out later that she's not actually a person. She is a marionette controlled by Drosselmeyer, who gains sentience and does not want to continue to do what Drosselmeyer says. So she ends up burned at the halfway point of the story.
She literally sets herself on fire because she does not want to continue being a slave to his whims.
Fortunately...
Which is pretty metal.
That is. But fortunately, we don't lose Adel entirely because her remnants are reconfigured, recycled into a smaller version of Adel known as Uzura, which is like a child version who bangs on a hammer and talks in baby talk and is constantly looking for your tail, Zura. And is lovey-dovey?
So, I am so glad they dropped the tail thing after like one episode. That was probably like the most that's something to that.
It wasn't dropped soon enough.
I feel like they're going for like a little drummer boy kind of
deal
which is interesting in and of itself, but this is an odd character that really grew on me as the show went along and became a lot more involved in the story than I was expecting to.
It did. She did. And we'll talk about why that is. But I don't think anyone expected that when she first showed up. And
No, I definitely wasn't either, but absolutely grew on me.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of growing on you, I noticed that all of us, we seem to be growing some black feathers and we're turning into crow creatures. Well, that's because of our final character in this group, the Raven, because this whole thing has been set in place by the villain as written by Drosselmeyer, which is the Raven for the story, The Prince and the Raven. It's actually the antagonist? Question mark?
I would say they are definitely the antagonists of this narrative.
Yeah, he's the antagonist, but not the villain. That is Drosselmeyer.
That's a good way to put it. The antagonist, but not the villain. And he doesn't he doesn't show up at all in the first half. We only start to see him creep up in the second half, because the premise of the story is that the reason why the prince has no heart, has no emotions, is because he shattered it to lock the raven away. I don't know how the physics of that works out, but because
it is a fairy tale story, the physics and the semantics don't really matter.
You're right.
The point is, the heart shard sealed Naraku away and all that.
Okay, that one I got. But because the
Good.
prince is starting to get his heart back, that means the raven is gradually able to come free, and by the end of the show, he is full-fledged again, is turning the people into dancing crow characters, including a truly horrific Mr. Cat Crow hybrid that I did not need to see, and that's the character who is very antagonistic.
Yeah, that is one of the most horrifying chimeras I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Thank God you speedrunning this. I don't remember it anymore.
Well, so we got a lot of mythical characters to talk about. So let's talk about the actors for them. Drosselmeyer is voiced by Marty Fleck. The narrator for the first half is by Jenny Welch, and for the second half is by Marcy Banner. Adel and Azura, despite sounding very different in both the sub and the dub, are voiced by the exact same actor between the two of them. Adel and Azura are voiced by Christine Otten. And then the Raven is voiced by Mike Kleinheinz. It's a very German name. So, Marty Fleck, I feel like he only really was doing bit parts in this time period of like the mid-2000s. Like, I recognize him as the wise old man in an episode of Kino's Journey. But more recently, like with the Sentai works, I feel like he's been getting more named roles. Like, you may recognize him as Uranus in the Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon series? And yes, it is. Stop picking up girls in a dungeon. And then something that I know our good buddy Patrick is a big fan of, he's in the Mr. Tonegawa and Kaiji dub as Kazuta.
Well, the proper name for that character would be Hyono. The main villain of that show, he is... I can only describe as, like... I can only describe it as a more evil version of Mr. Burns, like, pure, unadulterated...
A more evil Mr. Burns.
Loves to...
Wow, okay. And I think I recognize him also from Food Wars briefly. I think he's like a guest judge on that.
I think so. I did see that credit in there, but I didn't recognize the name when I saw it, when I was looking up his credits. But he's got a very distinct voice, so if I heard it, I would probably be like, Marty Fleck, right there.
Okay.
Speaking of distinct voices, Jenny Welch. So she does like I said, the narration for the first half of the show. She really hadn't done all that much in terms of acting at all. Like, I looked up credits for even stage or theater work as well. The only other thing that I recognize her from in voice acting is that she voices Kino's master in Kino's Journey, which is a character that only had a couple of lines of dialogue. And unfortunately, we will not be hearing her in anything else because she did pass away. She died in 2010. So I think that this narration role is probably the thing that she will be most well known for. From what I read, I believe that she stepped away from the second half of the show due to health reasons. So that is why we have Marcy Banner picking up the narration for the second half of the show.
Got it, okay.
Now, Marcy, you have probably heard in some more recent stuff. If you saw My Love Story, she played Yuriko. If you saw the new Sentai redub of Grave of the Fireflies, she plays the terrible ant character that the kids get sent to and then subsequently run away from. And to give a shout out to a Dub Talk favorite, Dramatical Murder, she plays the older character of, I believe it sounds Taya in that show.
I will nod my head and pretend I know who that is.
Excellent, perfect. You haven't seen Dramatical Murder or played the game, have you?
No, I have not seen Dramatical Murder, but as a bet, I did watch the OVA.
Oh, that's the best part.
Which I literally was like, watch the OVA, which is all of the bad endings compiled into one.
Yes, they are. And Marcy doesn't show up in that section, but I'm so glad you saw the best part of Dramatical Murder. Jamal, you guys should watch it too sometime.
I watched the episode y'all did. I'm good.
Good then. All right, switching things over to Christine Otten as double duty as Adel and Azura. She's been. This is one of the actors who has actually jumped between both ADV and Funimation in her career. One of her earlier roles, she was in the original Razafon dub as Elvie. She was in the Funimation dub of the original and Brotherhood version of Full Metal Alchemist as Izumi. And looking to something more recently, if you're like, where have I heard that name more recently? You guys know that Hero Mask got a dub?
The
Other dub, yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I do know it got a dub. It got 2.
It got 2. And
there was that weird era of like Sentai got Netflix licenses, but was unable to secure the English dub, and thus just had to make their own English dub. So there are just some English dubs that just do not stream that are just streaming but don't have a home video.
It's weird
anymore, and I am still bitter about Kakegurui.
Yeah, that was one of many that I'm like, what is going on here? But anyways, Christine plays Anna in the Hero Mask dub that Sentai did, not the Netflix one, but the Sentai version of that. So she's still around. She's still working in the anime voice acting today.
I am shocked you held restraint and didn't mention the fact that she's Esdeaf.
Okay, we don't have to keep this on the recording, but who's Esdeaf?
Akame got killed.
Oh my god. Okay.
I haven't...
Blue-haired ice waifu.
Okay, I thought we were gonna bring up her main abyss character.
When you said something recent, I thought you were gonna mention that we dropped the Re Cutie Honey episode at the time of this recording. And she's Rinko Terada, the red-haired office lady.
I'm sorry.
I forget that you are a good Noah. I love you. I appreciate you. You are sometimes a little out of touch.
That's fair.
When it comes to this
That's
stuff.
true. That's absolutely fair. That is not inaccurate. So don't feel bad about saying the truth. I'm not booing you.
Because I will definitely say Akame ga Kill is probably one of the more mainstream Sentai dubs they have done within like the past decade or so.
Well, less people need to watch Akame ga Kill, and more people need to watch the Sentai dub of The Life of Cusco Midori. What is wrong with you people?
All right, tell me about the Raven.
And the Raven is voiced by...
Quaff the Raven for me, fool.
Yeah, I knew I was... I mean, that's a big fucking reference. Who the fuck we kid?
The Raven is voiced by Mike Kleinhens, who is someone who you probably heard quite a bit in the mid-2000s ATV era. I've been saying that a lot tonight. He was Lucifer in the film Lady Death. He was Bison in Sentai's dub of Street Fighter 2 5, which is, although a movie made by the same production people who made the Street Fighter 2 movie, is not in the continuity of that movie.
I have been told it's not pronounced 5, it's pronounced V.
I've only seen it spelled, because I didn't hear anyone say it out loud, so... Okay, there you go, it's Street Fighter 2.
Yeah, I watched a Thorgy's Arcade retrospective about it. I think it's supposed to be Street Fighter 2 V.
Gotcha. Well, I'll remember that when I'm not watching the movie. What I will be watching, though, is the Full Metal Panic series, which Mike was in as well. In fact, he was in a lot of that series because he was the character of Lieutenant Andre in that series. And if you've heard his gruffer voice in this, you can see why he would be cast as Lieutenant in that series. Let's start with the Raven. Let's start with Mike's performance because although it's
okay, I was going to say there's two options. We start with Drosselmeyer or we end with Drosselmeyer.
We are going to end with Drosselmeyer.
That is the correct choice. Let's go to the Raven. He is delicious, deliciously sinister.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Just absolutely chewing that abusive, evil. Okay, so I'm going to name the source, so you don't have to guess the reference. Does anybody remember the 2000? I know you have. I trust you. Teen Titans, the mid 2000s Teen Titans TV show.
Please tell me it's the
character. I already know exactly where he's going.
Okay, both narratively, but also performance-wise, Mike Kleinheads as the Raven feels exactly like Trigon.
Oh yeah, that would definitely, yeah.
And it helps that they are ravens, and that Krahe does indeed look a little bit like Raven.
It all comes full circle.
But like that's like my biggest thing is like the menacing figure in the background with like the piercing blood red eyes, the voice and like the aesthetic reminded me so much specifically of Trigon in the mid 2000s Teen Titans show.
And see, that's interesting because for me, like, as someone who has seen like a pretty decent amount of magical girl stuff, like, I really do like Ominous, like the Ominous shadow in the background with like big red eyes, like a pretty big like magical girl staple. There's one in most seasons of Sailor Moon. There's one in like every Precure. It's like a pretty common thing.
So what you're saying, Andrew, is that we missed out on the opportunity of seeing Robin dressed in a black leotard with feathered wings because his heart had been dipped in Raven's blood. Is that what you're saying? I think that's what you're trying to say.
See, there are directions I can go with this, but it is late, and I need time to Fortnite build the fort of the perfect joke I need to make to get this ball rolling.
Well,
and we don't have the
while
time.
you're working on that, so we're all in agreement that like Mike's delivery of like this satanically evil Raven is like what was needed for this character.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. What's funny was I thought it was John Swasey at first. That's how the question was like, wow, this goes deeper than any John Swasey performance I've ever heard before. Like, although, also, let's get this out the way. I'm pretty sure when the author was coming up with this concept, she had a very heavy hand reading Edgar Allan Poe.
No, you think?
Not just the Raven, the Telltale Heart too, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of horror.
There's a lot of classic literature. There's a lot of ballet, theatrical stuff. Like, this is a love letter to the concept of literature and the narrative, meta-narrative storytelling in general.
Although that being said, some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, the writers were talking about how crows are depicted as like menacing or at the very least antagonistic in a lot of different cultures, like around the world, because crows or ravens are like one of the few animals that have like just spread naturally to the whole world before colonization. They were just like everywhere. So it's very fitting that they were chosen as the motif of the bad guy in this show.
Which is such a bummer because crows seem like they're actually really chill. They sound like laser beams, and if you help them once, they never forget. They never forget a debt.
But they pick your trash, and they're scavengers, and I don't want that.
If you help a crow once, they will remember for the rest of your life.
Well, so do puppies.
Do you know how sick it would be to have a murder of crows that show up and give you little treats and come to hang out and get little ear scritches while making little laser beam noises?
Come to think of it, I wonder if there was some Hitchcock influence on this as well.
Fucking course there was.
So moving on then to the dual character of Adel and Azura is
man, Christine's a stupid talented actress.
Yeah,
and she sounds like she's having a lot of fun too. Like if you guys are gonna watch any of the special features, I highly recommend the one where Christine is playing as Azura and she's going lovey-dovey donkey, lovey-donkey, dovey-donkey, lovey-dov. And she does that for like 5 solid minutes. They just had her go off.
So straight up, if I did not look up, this was the same performance.
Mm-hmm.
I would never have guessed this was the same actress.
Yeah.
I don't think none of us would have.
The inner voice is like pretty in line with what I'm used to with like Crazy Mountain.
It's a little deeper, it's a little sultry. That is kind of close to what I would associate with Christine, yeah.
Yeah, the user voice though, yeah, like no, I've never heard a Christine Mountain performance like that. That is like
that's really crazy.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. This is like one of my favorite characters in the show.
It's so good.
Apart from the,
I was not expecting the little comic relief character that came in halfway through the show, which, by the way, the show really changes gears completely once we hit the halfway mark.
It has to.
I was not expecting this little strange, loud, obnoxious child character to kind of be genuinely sweet and endearing, and there's like a single moment in the show with like Yuzura hugging Duck, like
in her
Duck, and I remember that I was like, oh, that is one of the cutest things I've ever seen.
You had to put it in the chat, and now we're all crying.
Yes, look at it. Look at how tenderly she hugs that duck.
So cute. You're right, it's very nice.
We could all be so lucky to have somebody hold us in our arms like that so tenderly.
It reminds me a lot of Puss in Boots, The Last Wish, because the character of Perito was like seemingly this annoying insert character that you're like, I don't know why this character is here. But by the end, he became like the heart of the show. That's how I feel about Azura.
He was done dirty so much in his life, and he chose to face forward with love and hope instead of despair and dread. And oh my God, that's just the message of Tutu, isn't it?
Do not let the bad ending happen. Like let hope and sunshine be your guide.
Yeah.
There is. I was reading. I've been going through some Tutu posts now that I have context for it, but I'll save a little thing that basically is the tagline for the show that when we get to the narrator. But I'll straight up say Adel is a very good guide that you can definitely tell is gradually becoming more sentient, and then Yuzura is this strange little loud child that is becoming more aware of its capabilities and what it is able to do and its role in the story, or to break the role of the story.
Yeah, basically what I really like about these two is that Edo kind of reminds me, when you first introduced her, she reminds me like one of those like organ grinder people you see at the circus, the ones play the little music box, they have the monkey.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're going for.
Yeah, and I like how she speaks with that tone of voice, just try to be all cryptic and stuff. It's like, you'll really get a vibe from her until later. Then when she self-immolates in the later episode, and she gets reborn as Uzura, it's funny. I liked how when we first introduced to Uzura is when Fakir introduces her to Duck. And Fakir just turns her head for some reason. I was like, "Whoa, wait a minute!"
Exorcist.
That was a funny little
yeah, and that kind of set the tone for Uzura from there. Until you get to the point when she starts gaining emotions that she used to realize about like Duck's self-sacrifice to save the prince and invaded the other world. Tried to turn back the story unintentionally.
Very, very literally turn back the time.
Yeah. I really thought, man, Christine's really hitting her stride here, man, because Jesus Christ.
If I could turn back time. The praise that I really want to give is also that despite it being different voices, it's also different inflections. Like Adel's delivery by Christine is like, it's not robotic, it's not monotone, but it's we see at the end of the show that the stairwell leading to the bell tower where the story itself is kind of being written is guarded by a little marionette that is shaped like Adel, and that delivery, that very mechanical sound to it, is easy to screw up and sound boring, but because Christine has such breathy, sultry flavor to her voice, every word of that delivery is just very joyous to listen to, even if you don't understand what her cryptic messages are about. The line that she consistently says, and I didn't write it down, but you guys know which one it is. The praise to those who follow their fate, glory to those who fight against it. Like that right there is really the message of the story.
Christine's very underrated as an actress. She has very good range, to which she also shows up as an ostrich in one of the later episodes as well. And I was like, wait, that's her?
I love the very casual reveal about how weird shit animal stuff is. Like, was Mom always an African rhinoceros?
I'm still trying to get used to the crocodile one.
Oh, the little crocodile ballerina girl.
I love at the end of the show, it's like they're panning across the human characters who have like turned back into humans, and we see what the crocodile girl looks like in human form, and you're like, it's just a little pigtailed girl who's like, Mr. Cat, I smell a tasty duck.
Speaking of Mr. Cat, he wasn't fixed after all. Good for him. Good for him.
With that, moving on then to quickly talk about the narrator, which, like we said, is not a character that we see, but is significant of setting the tone of that fairy tale narration that permeates the whole story itself. I do believe that there is a different sound between Janie and Marcy's delivery. The way I wrote it down is that Janie has an older, regal delivery, whereas Marcy has a more Shakespearean delivery. Two equally meritable, two equal merits of ways to deliver these fairy tale lines, and I don't think that if anyone wasn't told that the actors changed partway through, that you would notice.
Yeah, basically.
I honestly hadn't.
I had noticed, and honestly, I kind of had the reverse reaction to what Noah mentioned. I thought that, like, I thought that Jenny sounded more Shakespearean, and Marcy sounded more kind of like, grandmother reading you a story.
Interesting.
And I will admit it did take me like a couple of episodes to get like used to Marcy's narration, because I didn't think that Jenny sounded like so like dramatic and distinct. But Marcy got the hang of it pretty quickly. I did like the way she delivered it too. So I think both did a pretty good job.
I'm wondering if maybe like preferences to which narrator you liked better would be because of which half of the show you like better. Like the first half is less dramatic, it's a bit more lighthearted and I think easier to grasp onto, but the second half takes more to get invested in, but once you do, is more worth the ride.
I don't know, I like both halves about the same, honestly.
I think the first half is a solid show on its own and satisfactory enough of an ending to be somewhat satisfying as like, okay, this was a pretty good show. I enjoyed my time with it. I think the second half and the things that has to say about its message, about the concept of the narrative, and about fate. This is a show about fighting the winds of cruelty, of tragedy, and overcoming it through sheer force of will and adversity. It is... Princess Tutu is the Gurren Lagann of magical girl genres.
That's a high bar to set. Like that's going to require some picking apart, and maybe we should hold off on that until we actually wrap this whole thing up.
Okay, it is very funny you say that, considering what the most recent season of Freak here was. But yeah.
Okay, but I stand by it. There is something about that feels distinctly Gurren Lagann, both in the overcoming your fate and both the happy ending that is just a little bit bittersweet.
But what do you think of the narrators, Andrew?
I think the narrators are perfectly fine and do a lovely job. I think Jenny and Marcy do an exceptional job at setting the tone of the show. I just don't have specifically a lot to really dig into either one specific performances. All I can say is I think they did a very great job for what they needed to do.
Gotcha.
I mean, there wasn't really any discernible difference much to me. They both did a very good job. Like what narrator did, what needed to be done. See, the reason I'm not as focused on which narrator was better is because they only show up for like the first 30 seconds, then you get into the intro. So it's kind of hard to parse that,
Yeah, that's I mean, it's supposed to be invisible narration, I guess.
Also, they're kind of repeating some of the same stuff that kind of varies between episodes. Like, talk about the man that died and write the story and so on and so on and so on. It's like, it's all starting to blend together to be a little bit.
You know, when the first time I watched the show, I think I had a similar reaction because, like, I got the premise, like, okay, this is a story about bad things happening to people, and Drosselmeyer's the writer, and he's dead, and yada yada yada. Upon this rewatch, I do think there is variation between the intros that, like, gradually fills in the cracks. Like, it really is a twist when we find out that not only are the characters trapped in a story written by Drosselmeyer, but also that, like, he was a real person who had the power to bring what he wrote into reality.
I think the discrepancy here is that the slight differences between the narrator and the gradual reveal there is much clearer on a rewatch than, as you've described us, the Princess Tutu versions, where we're just kind of confused about what it's going for.
All right.
At first.
I sort of got what it was going for pretty. Well, I wouldn't say pretty quickly, but like that twist didn't surprise me too much.
No, that's fair, but I think it's like we are less consciously trying to figure out what is going on there when you're not as clear as all the puzzle pieces.
See, this show is why I should have suspected that there was a twist in Odd Taxi. Like, I saw this show and I'm like, you should question when you see talking animals. I should have questioned that in Odd Taxi and I just didn't.
Yeah, like you go to a movie theater, you watch the Raya, The Last Dragon, you see it talking like Aquafina, and you sit there and wonder, why am I watching this movie?
Okay, you know that's a lie. You know nobody went to the theater to see Raya the Last Dragon.
Yeah. But to be fair, to touch on that, with Odd Taxi, isn't like everybody animals before the big twist is revealed?
Yeah, like visually, that's what you say.
Yeah, here it's kind of a mixture between humans and animals, you know. So you can't really compare apples to apples because the apples are slightly different.
I got the impression that something was up pretty quickly. It was.
So you picked up on it.
Okay, so
With that being
Gentlemen, this is a lovely conversation. I love how deep we are going into this, and I think the conversations about the differences between Jenny and Marcy's performances is at least a worthy conversation to have.
But
Fuck all of that! I want to talk about Drosselmeyer so fucking much. Oh my god, Marty fucking Fleck.
Yeah,
this guy
man.
is so good. No matter what else he does, I'm sorry, this is going to be the signature role for him. I loved him in Mr. Tonagawa. I liked him in Keijo. This is where Marty was meant to shine.
This is so fucking delicious. It's so good. It's so good. Oh, come all you love stories, gather round.
Yeah.
Oh, how will you defy your fate, little duck? Oh, the prince. You can't tell him your feelings unless you turn into a speck of light and disappear.
Bop him on the back of the head for us, please. He's getting too into character.
It's so... Oh... Everything about Drosselmeyer is just a level of, like... I'm not even sure I'd call it evil. It's just this level of, like...
He's getting too much joy out of other people's suffering.
Yes, but you can tell that he is reveling in it so goddamn hard. It's... If I mentioned Q from Star Trek, would anybody here understand what that means?
I'm not a Star Trek person. So
I know the character, but I've never watched the franchise.
No.
Okay.
I'm trying to.
If I mention Discord from My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, would that make more sense to you?
Yeah, but Discord. I'm sorry. Discord is maniacal. Like is fucking with people. Whereas, I get the sense that Drosselmeyer, it's not that he wants people to suffer because he likes watching them suffer, it's that there is no alternative to him. It is someone who has not even considered that a happy ending is possible.
I'm not sure I quite agree with that. I think it is legitimately that he is an author that, like, he thinks the brilliance is the tragedy coming, like, to a bitter end.
Right.
Like, there's that level of, like, oh, my brain is so big, my cock is huge level of, like, oh, I have created the perfect, cruel irony out there. I am a god among gods.
I mean,
just that level of like gassing himself up. And everything about Marty's inflection, if you will, is just pure, absolute delight, and like chewing it up so good. Just everything about Marty's performance is so fucking good. It's incredible. It's delightful. It's delicious. If I said Jim Cummings-esque, does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear it. Like, yeah, I can definitely hear it.
Jim Cummings is
Okay,
definitely
cool.
a person who sound like he would be as entertaining to watch perform his voice work as it is to actually listen to.
And like that's the energy I get from hearing this specific performance, is that it reminds me of Jim Cummings.
little Jim Cummings, little Tony J.
Oh, definitely Tony J, yeah.
Yeah.
He is the dungeon master that has like a 50-page manifesto about how the rules of his game world work, and if you try going off path even a little to try and mess with some of the NPCs and like have a conversation with them and try flirting with them off the narrative beaten path, he will get really huffy.
Well,
that is Drosselmeyer.
Yes, it is.
And
I'm
sorry, I keep going off. It's so genuinely one of the most delightful performances in this whole show. It is.
Is it entertaining, do you think, partially also because we don't have performances or characters like this in any other anything, really?
I don't agree. I think there are other characters in other medias that are like hyper aware they are characters in a work of fiction and break the fourth wall and like act a little tongue in cheek.
See, now I'm picturing like Deadpool taking on this role.
Deadpool taking on the role of Drosselmeyer would be insufferable.
Yes,
because Deadpool is fun because he knows he is he is a character in the world and he is acting like it. Drosselmeyer is different because he is an active observer who thinks he is controlling the world he is observing.
Yeah, this was probably my favorite performance in the dub. Like, I've heard Marty Fleck in a lot of things. I've heard him play a lot of villains. I just mentioned Kyoto. He was, like, really good. He was really great in the Kazi dub. I definitely got to show you a clip of that later. He had, like, a really good speech in that. But, yeah, I really do like the sort of, like, manic sort of, like, very theatrical performance Martin was giving a guy who's just like, very clearly having fun, like watching his story come to fruition. Is just like it gets very, very upset when like all the actors aren't moving the exact way he wants to. Just very clear, like, fear to director energy.
Yeah, I find it funny that we were kind of complaining before about how Lilie is like a little too mean. Whereas Drosselmeyer is, like, actually playing God, and yet for some reason, he, like, gets a pass for that for some reason.
Because he is a larger-than-life character and not a girl you've actually gone to school with.
Yeah, he's a larger-than-life character, and also, like, he's, like, also very clearly the villain of the story, so, like, of course you're supposed to not like him.
Like, that's what makes him compelling to watch, is that you kind of know that he's a little broken and got a screw loose.
Yeah.
It's like Lilie.
No, see,
yeah, but Lilie is just a girl.
Okay.
She is just some girl.
Lilie is mean-spirited. Drosselmeyer is fucking crazy, bruh.
Thank you.
Speaking of fucking crazy, Drosselmeyer fucks.
Okay.
Okay, I'll let you continue with that, but I just had like a very
revelation
that I'm not sure how to process.
Process right now for all to see. Go.
I'm just telling you right now, Andrew. You cannot do that.
No. Noah. Jet, I'm letting you cook. Give me your thoughts.
Okay. I know we put some Vidoka earlier, but like, man, it is really depressing if you really sit and think about it. Like, Drosselmeyer and Cube basically have the same role.
Drosselmeyer and Cube play the same.
Oh, that's the main character.
No, I mean they basically have the same role in the narrative.
Because
I'm like they're kind of responsible for everything that happens, but they're not like
They
explicitly.
give the main character their superpowers. They are the driving force. They don't care if bad stuff happens. In fact, they kind of encourage it. I can see where you're coming from.
I think you're correct, and you should continue to say it.
I mean, I guess to be fair, like QB's like, wow, I can't believe I'm defending QB. Like QB is like maybe not as actively mean as Drosselmeyer, but
Drosselmeyer is cruel because he is human and all of what makes a human being cruel and petty. Which makes him a really great foil for this.
Look, I'm sorry, Andrew. You cannot just come into our chat at 3:41 in the afternoon and just, with 2 magical words, disrupt all reality by just typing the words Drosselmeyer fucks. That is not allowed.
Drosselmeyer fucks. There is a family tree. There is a 23andMe laid out by Mr. Mandark himself. Drosselmeyer has had sex.
So horny for the librarian character of her class that she was like, yes, I will allow that to impregnate me. I do not want to think about that.
Do you know, Noah, we know women who are into anime and manga and video games. All of the women in our lives want to fuck some freaks.
Yeah, but at least then they're...
Absolutely let some freaks inside of them do sick nasty.
I still refuse to accept that Drosselmeyer fucks. I refuse to acknowledge the reality that he has gone up to Fakir and said, your father has some desires that you may not know about. I don't make love. I fuck. I refuse to accept that, and I'm just going to tell myself that Fakir is just a character that he wrote and exists in this reality.
I'm sorry. Now, little duck, I don't simply make love. I fuck.
So, Jamal, you must have some contrarian views on Marty's performance with all of this,
good
right?
Good God.
Oh, that one went so off the rails, so off script. I'm sorry, Jamal.
We're editing so much of this out. Anyways, please.
No, that's gold. Fuck you.
Yeah, there's no way I'm gonna top that performance, but I guess I'm the newbie in this conversation. I don't listen to a lot of Mighty Flex stuff. Guys, I'm sorry. But when I did hear him as Drosselmeyer, forget going ham. This man is like, just even a minute is like a slice of Iberico ham because he is so salty. The way Drosselmeyer gets on with the story, like he pretty much has all the cards. Like he's provided all these context exclusive stuff. To go back to what you said about the comparison between him and Kyubey, Drosselmeyer has all the pieces in place, but he gets upset when even one of them is out of place. Kyubey is like making a deal with the devil. You know?
Yeah.
May give you what you want, but in the end, you're gonna get fucked.
Basically, it's a difference between somebody with, like, OCD versus somebody who just says, fuck it, we ball.
Drosselmeyer wouldn't really go down without a plan. I mean, yeah, he did get... Okay, at the very least, we know he got murdered early on, so when we're finally introduced to him, he does provide this air of mystique around him.
I think that why we kind of accept some of the fantastical things like the animals and we don't question why this is happening is because of Drosselmeyer's existence. And we're like, okay, there's a character who has willed himself back into existence after death, and we're just supposed to accept this.
Dude's so angry to die that he's like, dude, my next book is gonna be so sick, you have no idea.
With blackjack and hookers.
I mean, maybe he had a contingency plan, who knows. But what I do admire about Drosselmeyer is the way him and his creepy eyes come off. Because when I saw those eyes, I was like, yeah, that man sees some shit.
That's been around for very much in the. I'm sorry, the production design. Like a big part of the
that's
DVD extras is the.
Yeah,
It's the path to how they made the characters, and like Duck, for instance, like her character design went through a lot of changes. But Drosselmeyer's had those eyes for pretty much the first character designs.
He needs to look like a broken, unhinged man, and they kind of nailed it with those fucking crazy eyes. Regardless.
Yeah, the only question is like how. I bet the director probably asked like, how unhinged do you want to go with this character? And Body was like, yes. Because
I think you're right.
Because I cannot recall any other time I've ever seen a character like this. Barring the narrative, I've never seen a character this unhinged. It's just like you said, he's a villain, not an antagonist. And I see why that makes perfect sense, you know.
And we would not have a show without him.
Oh my god, I'm sorry, I'm looking at Drosselmeyer again. He's got motherfucking Junko Enoshima crazy eyes.
That was not who I was thinking of, but yeah, I definitely see it now.
He's got the swirly eyes of despair. Oh my god.
I wonder if that was an intentional homage
No.
in Danganronpa.
I'm gonna say the odds are low, but not zero.
Hey, look, if Rebecca Sugar can base character designs on obscure-ass Russian cartoons from the 60s, then they are allowed to make video game characters based on Drosselmeyer from this show.
Was literally just having a conversation today where all the seiyus of the main characters for the Danganronpa series in Japanese kind of implies that Danganronpa is secretly Kodaka's edgy Detective Conan fanfiction.
Okay, we're gonna pin that for another discussion because that doesn't belong in this episode. What does belong?
It doesn't.
I think we've picked this clean now, and we're ready to move on to the main meat of the show, the main dish, as it were. We're gonna have some roasted.
I love Marty
duck
Fleck as Drosselmeyer. He's so fucking crazy.
and
But
talk
yes,
a little about the four main characters. If you're the prince, you must defeat the villain with the power of your sword. If you're the villain, then you must defeat the princess with the power of your crows. If you're the knight, then you must go down swinging. And if you're the good princess, then you must protect the prince with the power of your love. Don't you know the trouble of forgetting your place? Damn it, we're going to talk about Duck, Muto, Rue, and Fakir.
So a duck, a knight, a crow, and a prince all walk into a bar. They have trauma. Go.
Yeah, that's basically the recipe for the show, and it's very good that we got some good actors for this. I'm not going to mince words with this. We got some of the best actors that ADV had on staff to consistently voice these characters, and the show ran them through the ringer, which is very fun to watch because I think from every indication we've gotten, they were absolutely reveling in the melodrama of this show from start to finish. So, Duck, the main character of the show, is voiced by Lucy Christian, and she does voice Duck in all iterations, both the quacks as a actual waterfowl, the young girl voice as a regular human, and the prima ballerina delivery when she is the superheroine Princess Tutu. Muto, the valiant prince whose heart shards have been shattered, is voiced by Jay Hickman. I understand. Rue is voiced by Jessica Boone. And Fakir, the knight/writer character, is voiced by Chris Patton. Now, whereas some of the previous actors I talked about, there were visible question marks over these guys' heads, because they're like, I haven't heard that voice before. I'm pretty sure almost all of these guys have heard of all four of these actors here. But I'm still going to list some of the roles that they've done before, just to whet your appetite a little bit. Lucy Christian has been around for a while. She has been a staple of the voice acting scene for well over 30 years now. Actually, no, what year is it? More like 20 years now. Still, good freaking long amount of time. Like, one of her earlier roles was as Ron Kotobuki in Super Gals. You more mid-level shonen fans may know her as Ochako in My Hero Academia. And even into the...
Okay, you just threw a stick of dynamite into this conversation for no fucking reason.
That's good, good. And you know why? Because I want those YouTube comments below to get all mad and boost our algorithm. That's why I did that. Just for the fun of it, what's your guys', when I say Lucy Christian, like the first name that comes to your mind? Jamal.
Nami in One Piece.
Very good. Jet.
Well, I don't know. I don't have one.
All right, I'm cutting that part
Wow.
out. Andrew.
Honestly, probably Nagisa from Clannad.
Really? Well, actually, that doesn't surprise. I forgot that you were a really big fan of that show.
Yes, I am quite. That's definitely kind of one of those like things that really got me out of like my shonen like shell, more or less, is what I'd say.
So as evidenced by that, Lucy has voiced leads in a lot of different kinds of shows, and thank goodness for that. Who has also been around for quite a while has been the very talented Mr. Jay Hickman. Now you probably let's see, something from ADV. He was the fool in Kaleido Star. More recently for Sentai, he voices Daddy Jorichio in Food Wars. I know they don't call him Daddy, but come on, look at that character design. That's Daddy right there. And something on the much more recent side, if you watch the second season of Maiden Abyss, he voices the character of Majikaja, which is that mechanical character who still has a regular human voice. It's weird. It's a very weird show. Does anyone else have like a Jay Hickman role that they're really fond of?
You mentioned.
Just say the giraffe from Review Starlight, and we can move
It's
on.
like, he is. I was like, oh man, not Phoenix. Hyoga, he is Hyoga in Saint Seiya.
Gotcha. So you would know that better than I do, because I didn't watch Saint Seiya, either of the versions. I heard it was good though.
The new Sentai Down Master turned out really well.
Sweet. Going back to older stuff, moving over to Jessica Boone. Now this is a voice that is not doing as much voice work nowadays, but she was pretty prominent back in the mid-2000s. Probably her most well-known voice is Chio-chan in Azumanga Daioh. More recent things, though, she was Rei in High School of the Dead. I have to bring up that she was in the dub for Maburaho, because no one remembers that show at all, but I love mentioning it because it was an absolutely awful harem series from the mid-2000s. But the reason why you probably haven't heard Jessica as much in voice acting is because she's been a little busy traveling the world in the Prague Shakespeare Company. Yeah, she is like a full-blown theater person these days. So we're very lucky to have her in this dub.
That does not surprise me, and also I'm kind of shocked you did not mention the most recent thing she was in, which was a critically looked forward to Sentai dub.
And what was that look forward to Sentai dub, Andrew?
Keep your hands off Azakin.
Oh?
Well, now that you've mentioned it, thank you very much.
Yeah, no, she's one of like the main girls in Azakin.
Yeah, she is fantastic in that show.
Nice. I'll have to put it on the to-watch list.
Yeah, Azakin is definitely a show you would enjoy.
And rounding out the cast, we gotta talk about Chris Patton, because oh my god, I love Chris Patton. He's like one of the most fun voices to listen to, like in anything. One of my more favorite roles of his is Sato in Welcome to the NHK, the recluse neat of that show. But again, he's done quite a bit, most prominently with ADV and Sentai. Another thing that you cannot watch anymore, but if you can track it down, definitely listen to it. He voices Ichiro in Narima Daikon Brothers, which is the other Watanabe show before he made Gintama. That is, personally, I think his best thing that he's done. But if you want to listen to something even more recent that Chris Patton has done, he's in the recent dub for I've Somehow Gotten Stronger When I Improved My Farm-Related Skills. He voices Loki in that show. And yes, Andrew, I'm sure you're thinking, like, how could you not mention this Chris Patton role? I'm like, there's a million things you could mention. Like,
I'm not gonna fault you on Chris Patton, because that dude has played a lot of roles. I'm just disappointed that your fucking ineptitude at knowing modern trends. You picked a shitty isekai?
well, they're all shitty, so, I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer.
You disgust me. Anyways.
So, yeah, this show falls apart without these characters.
Well, first of all, we mentioned earlier that like some of these actors were maybe a little green back in the beginning, but which is why I'm gonna bring this up. If you told me that was Jay Hickman voicing a teenager, I would have called bullshit.
Really?
It's definitely not a voice I would have associated with Jay Hickman either. I can kind of get where he's going.
Yeah, basically, because when you hear him start out as Muto, like, he's got this quiet, reserved kind of voice. I'm like, that's Jay Hickman.
Like, what's the voice that you have in mind when you think of Jay Hickman?
The giraffe! Oh, well, somewhere along those lines. I can't think of any more characters off the top of my head right now, but all I know is when I hear Jay Hickman in the new Sentai dub lately, I can pick him out pretty easily. I was like, yeah, that's Jay Hickman.
My biggest reference to Jay Hickman is also Daddy Yukihira, aka Joey.
That's the one. Okay. You see, like I said, I'm having trouble picking up because I don't watch a lot of Sentai shows. Maybe I should, but you know.
Oh, that's fair.
We have this discussion where every time we discuss a Sentai show, we all have somehow never seen a Sentai show, but we've actually watched a lot more than we think we have.
You got a lot on your plate. You gotta,
among other things,
yes,
choose,
right?
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot he was Krusty in Log Horizon. I actually forgot that.
I should probably watch that at some point. I guess I own season 1, so.
But
yeah, so Jay Hickman, that's crazy.
So, okay. For one thing, I should probably mention that when I mentioned yoga and Sensei, I actually got confused. He was yoga, but he was yoga in the old ADV dub.
Oh, that's very different.
Yeah. The new one was Patrick Poole. I don't know why I got that confused, but anyway. I have heard Jay Hickman in a few things, and I am kind of used to him having a bit of a deeper voice. Definitely not used to him voicing a teenager, and I gotta be real, this was probably the performance that took the most getting used to.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's so strange.
I do get that the whole deal with Muto in the beginning is that he's supposed to be lacking emotions. And with that in mind, it does make sense to have the performance sound kind of salted. But even then, I do kind of think there are ways to do that I didn't totally executed on in the beginning. So I do think that Jay's performance came off as a little rougher than I would have liked early on, but I do think he kind of eased into the role more as he got along, and I especially enjoyed him in the second half, which uncoincidentally is when
he gets some fucking mean.
Yeah, it's when Muto gets more to
Yep.
When Muto gets to be mean, I think that Jay really gets lead into that, and then the performance is a lot of
Get
fun.
some meat, get some feathers.
Muto is my favorite bipolar baby girl.
he also gives us one of the best bloopers as well, which I love the bloopers for this show. He's standing there looking out the window, and in that quiet voice, he's saying, "What I wouldn't give for some underwear."
He's just going commando. He is just doing the thing you do when a girl sleeps over where she just has the top on and no pants on, but it's just Muto doing that while he's alone in a room with Fakir, and it's just what was why is he just rocking out with his cock out? Why is that a thing?
This show is made for children.
Fakir is such a strange character, and I think Jay Hickman does a really good job as Fakir. As the show goes on, he's actually really, really strong, but he's so, when he's emotionless at the start, lacking emotions, he is a very strange, closed off, distant level of quiet distance that I almost would assume sounds I'd almost read a little autistic at the start of the show, if that makes even a semblance of sense.
I mean, if I were to view it from that perspective, I mean, I'm sure I wouldn't oppose that because, yeah, the inability to express things in a way that connects to other people is not a difficult thing to make a leap into autistic. The thing that I think ties into that is the fact that he needs someone to play off of for his delivery to sound not so stilted, which is maybe a segue into talking about Rue, because I think I think Jay's performance works best when he has someone like Jessica to play off of.
Which I really like Jessica Boone as Rui as Rue and Cray.
Yeah.
She's like really compelling and frankly a really tragic character.
Oh yeah.
I think like she's got a lot going on. She clearly wants to be like a normal girl, to have a normal love, but she's dealing with a guy who is either completely emotionally unavailable or like has the emotional availability of an abusive wife-beater guy who's going out for beer and cigarettes every night.
Wow.
Look!
It's not a good relationship.
Part 2, Muto and Rue are so toxic.
Okay, yeah, part 2,
It's
yeah.
so toxic. It's so unbelievably toxic that I'm kind of impressed that, like, he got a clue and, like, actually, like, brought it back together and made it work. Because it's really rough in the second half. He is a shithead.
I mean, okay, I mean, to be fair, he was kind of going through his edgy phase. I mean, you know, when you got that ring.
I mean, I was gonna say that was by design, but Jesus
He
Christ.
just made it fucking funny. I'm proud, Jet. That was a good one. That was actually a good one.
I actually didn't really know where I was going with it. I just kind of winged it towards the end.
That's how most jokes work.
You winged it.
Okay, that actually was not intentional.
Regardless, Jessica's performance.
I'm proud of you, buddy.
She gets to do a lot of different ranges. Like, I think my favorite part of her delivery is, like, when she's not sure who she is. It's like, she's got this dual identity as Craigie, but she doesn't quite realize it yet. Almost like she blacked out when she was being Tyler Durden. You know, she's like, who am I? I'm not the bad guy, am I? Are we the baddies? I like that delivery from Jessica.
There's definitely a lot going on, and it's very clear that she was, like, tricked into the role that she's in, because she just thought that she was just a really ugly crow because she looks like a semi-attractive human girl, and then it's like, oh no, she was just kidnapped to look stuff up.
Oh, she's not just semi-attractive. She's stacked.
She is clearly meant to be like a real like looker prima donna in this ballet world for sure. But she's just basically being abused and manipulated by her deadbeat crow Trigun dad to say that she is ugly and your only job is to be useful and help me get what I want, because why would the prince ever look at you when you're such an ugly freak? And it's like, man, that's abusive and taxing. Okay, sorry, I need to ask. Does Muto work on Edward Cullen rules?
In what sense?
That he is a lot older than he looks on, but he just kind of forever looks like 16, 17.
I mean, it's fairy tale rules. But, yeah.
I get it, fairy tale rules, but it's like you see Baby Fakir and Baby Rue all interacting with what is a teenage-looking Muto.
Mm-hmm. How about this?
Like,
what if we said it works on Makuya rules?
This entire episode is just a lot of very obvious references that people aren't going to get, and like the most obscure references.
Yeah, but
that like.
I knew you were gonna get that.
I know I get the Makuya reference. That speaks to me immensely. You are right, and I'm proud that you even brought up Makuya. But also, just. This is a strange episode.
This episode's gonna.
Anyways,
remember, if you have to think about it, perhaps don't.
Okay, so as we were saying about Jessica Boone, I'm gonna try to keep on topic here, please. Does anyone else have any thoughts on the performance and really the variety of voices that Jessica gets to play?
Oh, she's a fucking perfect prima donna, and she is rocking it. But she is also just doing the good the good drama at the same time too. Like Jessica is absolutely killing it throughout, and I think she does really bounce off of. She really does bounce off of like Muto very well, but she also has very interesting chemistry with Duck and Fakir as well. Have we talked about how fucking crazy Jay Hickman is in the second half of that show?
Yeah, man.
Oh my god!
Like the more he gains his hot shots, the slower his character starts to devolve until he starts turning all bad.
Okay. I know we brought up the Mr. Cat thing before, but like Raven Fakir was absolutely like the most disturbing thing in the show for me.
It's like genuinely a level of like dark I was not expecting. It's not just like, haha, I have gained my hidden Sharingan powers or something like that. It's like, no, that's a level of like evil cruelty that's like actually uncomfortable. Especially because like I say abusive, I'm not using that lightly. It's literally a level of like, I want you to devote yourself to me. Love only me, hate everybody else. It's literally just a level of like, I want these women to separate themselves from the people in their life, to devote themselves to serving and loving me and only me.
Okay, see, you were going into the emotional aspect of it, which is correct, but I was going into just like, oh no, like, legit, like, legit Raven Mayfield's was just like, that design was creepy.
Oh yeah, legit. I was not expecting actual like evil, creepy crow man. Like,
yeah, there's a level of body horror that I think we accept characters who look like animals and like just have humanistic features, but if we have to see someone turn into a crow creature, it's like, all right, that's where we draw the line.
And Jay rocks it.
Oh yeah, That being said, though, I'd be a little critical on Jay's evil voice in the second half, while still maintaining the almost hushed whisper that he has. And I think it's just because we heard him so much in that reserved, princely voice in the first half that I'm like,
it's almost jarring.
I think it's just that it doesn't sound as evil. It's like a person who is not really that bad, but trying to sound bad.
I think what it is like I said, when he regains his hot shots, his personality starts to increase. It's a gradual increase, and then you have the added aspect of the Raven's blood that kind of taints him, so it kind of shifts everything all at once. So he has to figure out how to balance being cocky with being evil, as well as try to coerce people to sacrifice themselves just for the evil's sake. I mean, I know there was a reason for that, but it's not coming off the top of my head fast enough.
I mean, that whole second half of like trying to seduce people as a sacrifice for the Raven, it was like, to me that felt like the most padding of the show. Like, it doesn't really tie into the acquisition of the heart shards and the final confrontation necessarily. I don't know, I just felt like that's the part that could have used some maybe more rewrites, but it's for 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, I like the theme behind it with like, with the whole thing of like, oh, like I want all these people to not to love me because I'm used to like because I'm used to sacrificing myself for everyone else, and I want someone to belong to me and only me. I like that motif. I thought that was interesting.
I really like that dynamic that he and Jessica Boone had with the characters, like bouncing off each other, starts to go yin and yang throughout the entire series. To which Jessica Boone, man, like, Jesus Christ! Not only did the mask drop once, it dropped twice when you get into her alter ego as Craigie. And it's like, god damn, that hurts in more ways than one, because she's just basically following orders of the Raven that she thought was her father till her memory start to kick back in. You realize she was kind of abducted. It kind of reminds me of some characters, some other stories. I think it gave me, I guess if I had to make a Sailor Moon comparison, it gave me like a Queen Belle kind of aspect. But unlike that, in the end,
you know what's crazy when I think about it? When I think about it, like, the end of the show, Rue and Muto are clearly meant to be, like, the stars of the stage. But, like, when you think about it, like, their importance to be the shining stars of the stage, to be the dramatic ones that defeat the big bad and have the happily ever after. Like, it's almost like the entirety of Princess Tutu saying, the people at the center stage are important, but when you really think about it, the actual heart and soul of the production are those working their hardest to support those behind the scenes.
Basically.
And that is in turn my way to kind of segue to discuss about what are basically the center stage people. They are not center stage, but they are the ones that keep everything in line from the sidelines.
They're the ones who offer the support
Yeah.
against all odds that ends up making this tragic tale finally have a happy ending. Starting about with Chris Patton's performance. So I know Chris Patton mostly for having like very sarcastic voices, for speaking, like even when he's playing like a straight up heroic character, he's always got this snark in his voice and the way he delivers everything. So with Fakir though, he has to be vulnerable. He has to go from being protective of Muto to being trying to save him in less conventional ways. And I think that Chris's arc, because he's really the only one who has like an arc throughout from the beginning of the whole show, is it's the strongest. It is the strongest performance overall because he has such a range of going from. I almost hate to bring up this reference, but it's almost like a Zuko arc, you know? It's a very much starts out as what you think is a bad boy, figures out, oh, I was doing stuff the wrong way the whole time, and then gradually comes off the right way, and then is the guy who gets all the fangirls in the end.
I don't know, you say Zuko, but honestly, like, just because I know Junichi Sato directed this show, like, the entire time I was thinking with him and Duck, it's just season 1, like, Usagi and Mamoru with Sailor Moon.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the obvious comparison, for sure.
Yeah. The reason I specified season 1 is because that was the season where Mamoru was so kind of like snarky and sassy, and then like in every other season he's less like ridiculously nice, and it's less interesting.
Which is funny because we're talking about Fakir, but I think that was also the case with Muto because at one point Mamoru did get turned evil for a few episodes in season 1. I do remember that.
I think the funniest thing about Fakir is that he starts the show like as a really big piece of shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
like he's a real piece of shit.
Is he really?
Okay.
Is he just being protective?
No, he's terrible.
Yes.
He is genuinely
both.
a piece of
Didn't even
shit
contemplate that for half a second. It's like, no.
His idea of being protective is effectively locking somebody in a tower, telling them you must. Him and Muto go through reverse arcs in that eventually, like, Muto becomes the manipulative, kind of controlling, abusive one, where Fakir kind of starts out that way, thinking he's doing what's best for Muto, while kind of removing his actual agency. This is a very nuanced character to try and accomplish all these changes from beginning to end. And, oh yeah, Chris sells that immensely.
Yeah, this is a really good performance. It was definitely the one I attached to almost immediately. I'm like pretty sure I haven't heard Chris Patton sound bad in anything, and I guess I wouldn't start now. So, like, yeah.
Man, going through the first half for majority of the show, I was like, man, this is a popular shift? This seems like this seems a little odd.
Oh,
and then you saw the first crack in the armor where he finds the little duck and he's like
locker and is like
he finds the little duck and then he gives Duck the little bit of the bread and he's like, here you go, little fella. Now run along home now. Don't be weird.
Yep, I knew exactly where I was going when that happened.
It wasn't subtle. That's how you know. It's like what's that rule that never trust someone who's mean to dogs It's like that rule. Trust anyone who's nice to ducks in this universe.
Trust anybody who's just good with animals in general. So he may be a little giant fucking tsundere boy who has trouble dealing with his emotions. No, he's good to animals, which means he's got a chance, which means she can fix him, which means... Oh man, that's a good ship. Fuck.
There's one criticism I have with the voice, though, with Chris's voice. It's not with the main voice. Throughout 99% of the show, I'm digging it. But when we flash back to him as a young boy, and we have baby Fakir, and it's still Chris Patton trying to be baby Fakir, I'm just like, I know this is just for a couple of lines, and it's just trying to keep the same actor. I would have cast maybe a different actor or a child character or get a girl to voice this.
Look, there's a couple of popular teen boy voice actors who are not the greatest at playing the smaller, babier version of their boy selves. Like, there's just a couple actors whose voices just naturally struggle with that specific.
I remember I had this exact same problem when I was listening to the Ushio and Tor dub, and there were a couple of lines where, like, David Matranga had to play Baby Ushio, and it did not sound great.
It's a creative choice that sometimes it works if it's not a big deal, but sometimes you can tell even the most experienced actors, like, having to sound that much younger, it's a struggle.
But I will admit, it did give us another great blooper in the preview clip where young Fakir is trying to think of a new name for Prince. And he's like, Prince is a weird name. Let's just call you the artist formerly known as Prince.
It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. But at least the blooper was worth it.
It is such a shame there are only 2 sets of bloopers. That, like, there were more. There were more
absolutely
flubs and outtakes and inappropriate line deliveries to make the engineers laugh that we just never got to hear on tape.
But Chris Patton is delightful and very complex, fully well realized as Fakir, which is my perfect segue to say the way Lucy Christian says Fakir is just gonna live rent-free in my mind for the rest of my days.
And you wonder why they could never get this on broadcast television.
Fakir.
Yeah, it sounds just a little...
Fakir. I love it so much.
You don't know how many times I've tried to ignore that upon watch.
Okay, as the show goes along, it's not as intense, but it also becomes a lot more tender, which makes it a lot more romantic, which makes it a lot more swell in that, oh, he's not just into her as Princess Tutu, he likes her as Duck the girl too, but also Duck the quack too.
By the way,
he just likes Duck. It's good. It's great. Yeah, fucking... That's some good shit. Anyways, I mostly just wanted to segue with this meme I found on Tumblr, which is, okay, apparently if a duckling imprints on a human and doesn't meet other ducklings, she ends up believing she's a human too? That's unbelievable. What if I'm just a duckling with an overactive imagination? What if I'm just a sleeping duckling and this is all a dream?
Quack.
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 That's Duck. That's Duck and Princess Tutu.
Well, I guess there's no putting it off then. Let's talk about Lucy Christian to round out this prima ballerina performance. Lucy is pretty perfect. It's the best performance of the whole thing. In fact, it may be, even all these years later, it may be my favorite Lucy role of all time.
Bold words.
I'm not quite gonna agree there.
I'm not sure I would agree either, but I think there is at least a valid argument for it.
Yeah, I mean, I do have some criticisms, but I'll let you guys go first.
Well, no, I want to
Go
hear
for
it.
it.
No, let's start with the criticism first.
Okay, so like Lucy Christian is regular Duck, 10 out of 10. The Princess Tutu voice, and not so much. Like, I'm willing to give some benefit of that, and that like this was like a younger, greater Lucy Christian, but like compared, and it might just be because I'm like, I know, I guess I'm a little bit more used to Lucy Christian, like having a lot more emotive roles, but I felt like the Princess Tutu voice kind of felt too much like her doing a voice and not necessarily acting out a character, so I found it like a little, not necessarily distracting, but you kind of felt like she could have like emoted a little bit more with the Princess Tutu voice. And I didn't like it nearly as much as her performance as Doc. I definitely thought that was where the character shined more.
Well, it's certainly more fun. Like, yeah, you're right. There's more entertainment and more emotion coming out of the Duck Girl character. I guess it depends on what you're looking for from Princess Tutu as a performance. The delivery that was described by the director and the writers is that it's as if a spirit has taken over the character of Duck and is speaking through her. So it's not supposed to be the embodiment of an actual human being. It's supposed to be like the soul of dance itself. And that's why it comes off as like, I am going to speak in perfect, rounded vowels and syllables all the time. Come dance with me, my prince. Don't you hear the flower speaking? Like that, like you're talking about that, right? That sort of stilted delivery. Yeah, it's...
I think it works for what it needs to be, but I could definitely see it being a little off-putting, all things considered.
Yeah, what I think it is that towards the end, when the Princess Tutu has a moment to shine, she's only there for like, depending on the episode, at least 2 to 5 minutes. So Lucy doesn't get as much time to develop the characters as the other personalities of involving Duck, you know.
The clearest character throughout the entire show is Duck throughout all iterations of herself. She knows who she is and she knows what she's about. She's not always sure of what her goal is or what her feelings are, but she's always kind of stuck true to just being honest, to trying to want to help everybody, to wanting to be the kind, gentle, supportive figure in everybody's lives, trying to opt out of violence and choosing like love and dance instead. And I like that this story is her winning, because this is clearly somebody in the face of adversity with a being like so predestined on tragedy, and her winning against those odds makes this a satisfying story.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the thing in the performance that contrasts the supposedly inevitable dark ending. Is, yeah, you're gonna go in fighting, you're probably gonna lose, but if you have faith and you get inspiration from those around you, even the smallest figure, you can find the confidence to shine through.
Especially in the last episode.
Yeah, one thing that they mentioned in the behind-the-scenes footage is that she's supposed to be Duck. Like, she has lost the pendant in the final episode, but the Raven's still beating the crap out of Muto, and she wants to help again, but she can't become Princess Tutu. So what she's supposed to do, what Lucy's direction is, okay, you're the Duck, but you're a Duck who's trying to sound like Princess Tutu. So imagine the difficulty of Lucy, like, keeping the Duck voice, but a Duck who's trying to sound like another character that she was voicing earlier in the show. That's a hard task to pull off.
That is a hard task, and I really do think, like, by the end of the show, she's absolutely able to do all of these strange, complex inner voice changes that is asked of her. Like, I believe at the beginning it was a little tough, but I honestly do think, like, as the show goes along, she really blends into everything that is Duck and Tutu. And you can tell this is a performance that is near and dear to her heart.
Oh, yeah.
I remember very vividly, like, when Steph brought the DVD slipcover for her to sign when we saw her last year at Kineticon, how she just basically lit up. How it's like that level of, like, you know what she's known for, but this was like, it was like uncovering like a lost treasure that you haven't seen in so many years. It was that level of like look on her face that really kind of stuck with me. Mm-hmm. And you could tell from the commentaries, you could tell just from the way the show portrays itself, this is a performance that's near and dear, and it's not hard to see why.
I think a couple of the things I really liked about performances Duck was number one in the final episode when she cried out to Muto. And I like the mix of this too, because at one point you can hear her quacking, the other you can hear her talking the human voice. I thought the way they overlaid that was very neat.
Oh, you mean when
Like
she can't speak out loud, but you can hear her what she's thinking as she's frantically quacking?
Yeah. And the other was in the early episodes when I believe when she was talking to Ito in the beginning, and she was asking a question, like, it was so much of a run-on sentence that it sounded like she was starting to confuse herself. It is very impressive how she manages to keep up that speech pattern for so long before it starts to tire her voice out.
Well, like I said, the releases for this was kind of spaced out. Like, it wasn't just, okay, we're going to go in the studio for a week and we're going to record dialogue for all 26 episodes. It's like, no, we're going to record episode 1 through 4 for Volume 1, and we'll come back to this in about 11 months, and then we'll do a couple more episodes. So.
Oh, God, anime was... anime is kind of insane and crazy for different reasons they were back then, because back then it was the fucking Wild West of nonsense. For all the good that was available and present back then, there was a lot of bullshit people had to put up with.
So let me ask just a fun question for all three of you. Is there any show that's airing nowadays that you'd be willing to buy 4 episode per volume releases of?
I mean, generally not. I don't know, maybe pre-written, maybe.
There's...
Dude, I'm still waiting for Jahi to come out Blu-ray.
I'm gonna say I don't think I could do that. The reason Pony Canyon USA is not around anymore is because nobody could do that.
I mean, if it was the only way to get a specific show, maybe, like, if it was the only way, say, 86 would finally come out, like, I guess I'd take it, but...
It's specific cases, but it's cases where the show would sell, like, absolute dog shit, and then that company would go bankrupt, and then you would never get any anime releases again, and that's why you're not gonna do it.
So yeah, with all that considered, I think it's lucky that we got the show, we got this whole show released out, because like I said, it was...
And dubbed to completion.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Because it's a really good dub.
It is.
I also like to joke and say, I imagine Fakir, by the end of the show, is that guy who went online and said, I want a duck. 2 hours later, I went out and got a duck. I love my duck.
Okay, does anyone who is not Andrew have any final thoughts on the 4 main characters before we move to our final thoughts?
Unique ensemble, everyone did great.
Sweet.
Beyond belief.
They fought, they defied their fate, and they came out victorious.
Andrew, what part of anyone who is not Andrew was not clear?
The part where I'm tired, and I think I'm ready to wrap up.
Good, I'm glad you're tired, because yes, this is the perfect time to say, so finally, we got everyone in this group who has watched Princess Tutu, and I'm so happy about that. So, to wrap up the final thoughts on this dub, this is, to paraphrase what was said earlier before, a dub that can be shown to a modern audience, barring dislikes for classical music or interpretive ballet or the magical girl genre in general. Yeah,
or if 4:3 aspect ratio makes you violently ill for some reason.
I'm gonna quote anime guitarist and said, like, if you can't handle black bars on the side of your screen, then you are not good enough for this medium. I'm sticking by that.
Oh, there are some pussies out there who can't handle a 4:3 aspect ratio.
Yeah, those people need to get off their high horse.
Mm-hmm.
But the show itself, the dub itself, you can feel all the love and, quite frankly, the westernness that was really needed for a dub of this type. Like, yes, it was made in Japan, but really, this needed to be turned into an English dub. This needed to be turned into something for a Western audience. And the cast of Texan actors who were, I'm sure, working under weird deadlines with the release schedules, still took the time to research the mythologies, the ballets, the interpretive dance, and the different Japanese archetypes that went into this to make a pretty damn good dub. I have very rarely listened to any of the Japanese. It was only just to compare it briefly to the English, and I will continue to listen to the dub, and I suggest everyone else do so as well. Some great performances by both people who would become veteran household names, and those who maybe didn't do as much afterwards. And so this is a good little encapsulation of the skill that was available at the time period.
Yeah, I really enjoyed going to the show for the first time. It was really interesting, definitely really cool take on the magical girl genre, and I'm glad I saw it. I also like the dub for the most part. I do have my nitpicks here and there about like where it shows its age, but for the most part, I had a pretty good time with it. And like I said in the beginning, I do think you could probably show it to modern audiences, and they would probably like it fine. So yeah, definitely check the show out.
For an almost 20-year-old dub, the show holds up pretty well. Very well, actually. You can see my expectations. I mean, I know you were a big fan of this show, and you've been pretty much trying to tell us for the longest while to watch it. I finally have an excuse to crack open my DVD set, which thank you very much, Noah.
You're welcome. Glad you enjoyed it.
I mean, yeah, thank you. And of course, like Jet nitpicks aside, is a show that holds up very well. Is something you can definitely watch in the modern era. I mean, we're doing an episode right here, right now. If I have anything to say about it, is that well, a few things. For one, if you're watching this for the first time, well, first off, you make a mistake watching this podcast beforehand. Skip episode 17 and skip the next episode previews, because what those are just scenes and lines from the next episode, which may spoil you on a couple of things if you're not careful.
The next episode previews do in fact show the next episode, News at 11.
Yes, but to find out that Fakir is Drosselmeyer's descendant in the next episode preview, that kind of killed things for me a little bit. So
yeah, I agree. I do dislike that when shows do that. You don't need to put your twists in the next episode previews necessarily.
See, the worst ones are when Toei does that, where it's like, what's gonna happen in the next episode? Find out on One Piece. Sabo eats shit.
I wonder what
happens in that next episode. You'll never guess.
That's like you gave One Piece all It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia titles. On the next episode of Princess Tutu, Fakir gets the gang gets their hands chopped off.
I think there's specifically one of those in Yu-Gi-Oh! As well, where it's like, is Junichi gonna come out okay? Find out on the next episode. Junichi dies.
And the other thing I want to mention is if you're somebody who's kind of averse to this kind of stuff, please get over yourself. Just give this a watch, because we're giving you a glowing recommendation for this.
No, we're walking out of this one. I'm genuinely, really, really, actually pretty happy with this one. This was a really cool show to watch. This was a really cool dub to watch. I'm glad I finally watched this. There's a lot to appreciate, actually. This is a really cool little show. I can see why this show sold like shit.
Yeah, fun fact, if you look up the first box set that had like all the episodes combined, and you look at the artwork, they picked the artwork that had Rue in a corset as the cover art in a birdcage, because they were worried about, marketing this as just a ballerina show, and they wanted to.
Wait, did they think something slightly saucy would sell Tutu?
Yes, they did. In fact, one of the commentaries talked about how they had access to all the key art, and it was all ballerina themed, and they're like, we do not think we can sell this show if all the key art on the covers is ballerina themed. So they're looking for stuff that was like, not. Some of it was sensual, but the rest of it was more like, like theatrical in nature. Just anything that's not ballerina themed.
It's like tasteful theater nudity, like.
Yeah, but there's still the subset of people, like the Venn diagram between
they didn't know how to sell this.
And ballerina.
It's kind of hard to sell this show to people, but the reality is, if you think you can handle theater, if you think you can handle magical girls, if you think you can handle ballet, if you think you can handle good meta-narratives about the nature of storytelling and characters and defying your fucking fate, that's why I say it's like Gurren Lagann. That's what I'm going to say. If you like Gurren Lagann magical girls, fuck you, watch Princess Tutu.
Row, fight the power.
Row, fight the Drossel fucker.
Well, with that said, I think our world of Princess Tutu, the page has finally come to a close. And unlike in that story, the pages are not ripped out. In fact, you people can write the next chapter of what happens in the story, because you now have the choice to watch the show itself. If you're interested in watching Princess Tutu for yourself, you can watch it on High Dive. Yes, it is readily available on Sentai Filmworks' own recently revamped app, High Dive.
It's got a sleeker design, which is going to start rolling out to their other apps too.
Yeah, as I understand, it's not readily available for was it?
OS, some Android devices. Mine already
right
updated.
Guys, this is already going to be like out of date as soon as we talk about what is or isn't updated.
Yeah. Well, either way, yeah, that's the best place for streaming to watch the show. I think it's also available on Amazon Prime as an alternative. But honestly, the place you should be watching it is in the comfort of your own Blu-ray player, because despite it not selling so well over the first couple years it came out, this show has never been out of print through the crash of ADV and the rise of Sentai and what's that subset, AE, that they have out there. They've kept this show.
Issa Holdings, they're gone.
Or whatever service is out right now. They've kept this show in print. In fact, they gave it a steelbook re-release not too long ago. And that version has not only all the episodes, but it's got tons of commentaries from both the voice actors and the writers and lots of the people who helped produce the English dub of the show. It has ballet for beginners, video clips narrated by the characters, explaining different dance techniques like pas de deux and twirling and axel and lutz and loop. Wait, no, that's ice skating. No, there's a lot of ballet stuff in there. There's explanations about the music behind the scenes. There is bloopers. There are behind-the-scenes interviews as the characters are recording their dialogue. There's even, like, small promotional videos from the time that they released the episodes as half episodes, and they have to have special credits for the episodes. Everything you could think of that could go into a release for a show is in this box set. So please do yourself a favor, go out and get the home video release for Princess Tutu.
He's good. He's very good.
Now, ourselves, the Dub Talk Podcast, if you've gotten this far, post the keyword tutu in the comment section to unlock the secret prize. You can find us here on YouTube, or you can find us on any of our audio-only feeds. Andrew, I always forget what the variety of audio streams are. Can you please rattle them off for the listeners?
You can find the Dub Talk Podcast on Spotify. You can find us on Apple Podcast, and you can find us on Podbean as well. So if you'd like to take us on the go while you're practicing your high heel ballerina techniques, you can do that. And
thank you.
You can do a pas de deux with that lovely, wonderful, significant other in your life, and continue to ignore their instructions and listen to us yell about Princess Tutu for 3 hours. I'm sure they will take exception to that.
Hey, I'm going to trim this episode down at least a little bit. But we couldn't do episodes like this without the lovely people at our Patreon. Yes, we have a Patreon account, Dub Talk Podcast on Patreon, where the members of that get a shout out in the episodes because, hey, we love the support. Specifically, we want to shout out our $5 patrons. Those are Michelle Travis and Megan's mom and dad. And we also want to give an even bigger shout out to our $10 patrons, people who donate just a little bit more and get the episodes a little bit earlier than everybody else because they are special individuals. We want to give a huge shout out to the awesome Anthony Brown, the charismatic Carly Lesticow, the quite sensational Quinoa Soup, the magnificent Marissa Lenti, who, like we said before, was wonderful enough to recommend this series for us. This is absolutely something we would not have done if you had not suggested it. So thank you so much, Marissa. And rounding it out with the awe-inspiring Otaku Anthony. Like I said, if you would like to be on that list yourself, consider donating to our monthly Patreon, and you could be the one to choose the next episode of this podcast. To send us home here, I want to know, what are you guys doing when you are not dancing the pas de deux of Princess Tutu? Jet!
I'm Jet. You can find me on the Twitters and Blue Skies at where I'm usually just, I guess, be ranting about anime or cartoons or I guess whatever. You can also find me on other podcasts, Podcast O&A, where I'll usually be talking about anime news alongside Andrew here, and I also write some stuff for Anime News Network occasionally.
Hey.
And what was the most recent thing that you wrote about?
Most recent thing I did was an article on why everyone should be watching the remake of Dragon Quest Adventure Die. That's a really good show. More people should be watching that.
It is a really good show. I'm glad you convinced me to watch that with you to do an episode today. I have been enjoying that quite a lot. I'm excited for finishing what is basically the final arc within the next 30 days. That should be fun.
Sweet. Andrew, since we got your voice over here, where are you around the World Wide Webs?
My name is Andrew, aka Classy Spartan. You can find me on Twitter at MangaMan9000. You can find me on Blue Sky at Classy Spartan. You can also find me on Surreal Resolutions Podcast O&A alongside my buddy Jet here, where we talk about the latest in anime news and all that jazz. Always a pleasure doing podcasts with you, buddy. Always a pleasure doing the Dub Talk podcast. Pleasure to do another Patreon episode, let alone a classics episode for a show I'm really glad I got to sit down and finally watch.
Sweet. And saving best for last, Jamal, what are you doing in the world?
You can find me on YouTube at Jamstar1. You can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Jamstar529. I'm an assistant editor for this podcast. I'm still trying to do a sort of podcasting thing, and right now what I'm trying to currently do is for this year, every month I'm watching a Blu-ray that I own on my TV. I think it's March, so I'm definitely gonna be watching Gunbust. I'm making it a habit to watch like at least one Blu-ray a year.
One a year?
In certain cases. I mean, one a month. One a month.
I'm so proud of your goals. One a year. That's more than most people.
Listen, man, I'm tired, man.
I'm going over to the corner. I'm out of here.
Damn right you will, but yeah.
But not before I round up by saying you can find me on Twitter at NoahClue, where lovely discussions of animation from around the world is always the name of the game, because they make cartoons in every corner of the world. For example, right now, there's not a competition necessarily, but there's an animation festival going on in Europe where people can basically pitch ideas for feature films, and if they get the support from wealthy backers and corporations who want to be part of that, they can actually get the funds to produce them, rather than going through a studio system. That is how Europe is making its animated movies these days.
Nice.
And with that, the story has come to a close, and we are. It's time for all of us to
take our
end
bows.
the night off. Go fishing.
Time to take our bows. Au revoir. Auf Wiedersehen. Good night. Otaku on. And
I love that the final screenshot of the show was actually Auf Wiedersehen in German.
Everything
cute.
about this is a German motif, which I think that's pretty cool. Anyways.
Yeah.
Aloha. And Otaku on, my friends.
Fare thee well.
Keep it sparkling.
Peace.
Keep it sparkling.